No.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, I don't handsome. It's a good though.
That's why I knew you didn't answer because I didn't think he was handsome.
Oh well, I mean,
I like it because it's funny and you have your 2 thumbs up.
Okay, I mean, like I said, but I like the fact that you refer to me as handsome on the grounds that as my mate, it's a good way to demonstrate teammatehood and stuff, and that's great. But I don't know. I take a disinterested calculus about things, including that. So I have my own perceptions about it. I guess whatever.
It's cool.
All right. Hi, 3 people who are here. Thanks for being here. I wonder if my little video announcement on the other channel helped. It might have. I want to talk about baby's first extroverted sensing. Oh my God, it's so adorable. Oh my God, look, it's the first time baby's objectifying a woman. How cute. No, that's not baby's first extroverted sensing. That's crazy talk. Baby's first extroverted sensing would be something like scratching. And the reason I'm talking about this and made this the title is I want to discuss something I was thinking about before, which is specifically how SE, Proto-SE emerges directly from Proto-SI, and Proto-NE emerges from Proto-NI. But if we were to apply that same logic to the judging functions, it would be wrong. Proto-TI doesn't emerge from TE. Proto-TI emerges from FE, and vice versa. Proto-FE emerges from. The thing is, it's really the extroverted function that emerges from the introverted. So, SE emerges from SI, FE emerges from TI, not from FI. Why do I say this? Well, because even though TI ends up manifesting as conditional logic, and extroverted intuition ends up manifesting as ideation using language a lot and so forth, that doesn't mean that at their machine code level they require language. It has to be the case that newborn babies who don't yet have language still have some protoform of introverted thinking and some protoform of extroverted intuition. If they're dominant or something, then they have to have the functions, and especially if they're a DOM. If I'm a TI DOM at 8 years old, it's got to be the case that as a newborn baby, I'm still a TI DOM. I'm pretty convinced of that. But here's the deal. It's very easy to understand how SE emerges from SI for babies. Probably baby's first SE act is to scratch. So SE action, doing something, is responsive to something that motivates you to do. Now, the first way that a human being is motivated to do is via SI. If a baby is hungry, they're motivated to cry. That wouldn't really be SE. But if a baby is itchy, they're going to scratch themselves. If they're sleepy, they might rub their eyes. So we can see that it makes sense why SE DOMs are ignoring SI. It's because they can ignore. They don't need to pay active willful attention to it because they're so comfortable with treating it as an automatic source of motivation to SE, which is why it's implicitly valued as well. They rely on it to function well without a lot of conscious willful attention, and thus it's got to be considered important and significant in and of itself. In other words, violatable. If you find something sacred or important, you're worried about how it's treated or how it gets expressed or what have you. So, okay, chapter 2. What's the next topic? Extroverted intuition, introverted intuition. I was saying to Rachel in the car today as we were going through McDonald's, intuition is the wrong word for extroverted intuition. It's very misleading, and they really need to have a different word for it. But I get why it's that way, because extroverted intuition emerges from introverted intuition. It's contingent upon it to exist. I can't be an effective actor on the metaphysical plane. That is to say, I can't resonate as true, ideally as universally true. because if I'm just talking about things that are true for me, then other people can't really take much away from that. So it's necessary for me to be an effective extroverted intuitor that I be an effective introverted intuitor, but that it happened automatically, that I don't have to willfully think about it, don't willfully, and begin thinking about what I'm going to discuss next. If you are here and you have any questions, concerns, complaints, queries, comments, squids, or octopi, please leave them in the live chat. Hey, it's Bacon. I'm doing fine this evening. Everything's great this evening. I had a bit of a rough evening yesterday, but everything's good now. And so I'm doing fine. I'm pretty pleased at the fact that I've been working on that document that I made 3 videos from already, which is the Intro to Cognitive Functions kind of document. I'm very pleased with that, and I'm looking forward to making another video from that document. I was actually planning on live streaming on this channel right now with the other way so I could show the document and work on it with people together or other things like that, but I forgot, and then I just started live streaming like this. Ooh, more TI stuff I can spread way too much time on and try to understand. Oh, it's been way too much. I'll put the link to it. This one's a little bit easier, more. The stuff I did today is written prose. It's not just an outline. So it should explain everything fine. Let's see what you think about it. If you have any questions, I can update it to answer those questions, So the thing is, in this document of today, pages 7 through 10, yeah. Pages 7 through 10, yeah. If you are full of sin, you better read pages 7 through 10. Hi, Jenna Shank. Shank, huh? Name. Shank. The reason I'm interested in it is not because it means Shank, but because I'm from the Shank family myself. I'm a Strauss, but my dad's mother, before she got married, was a Shank. So, hi, avid bird watcher. Are you avidly watching birds? And while listening to this, I hope you're not watching this, because if you are, you might be non-avidly watching birds. I wonder if we're related, Jenna. Are there a lot of Shanks in the world? It seems like a rare name. We might be related. Are you from Pennsylvania? Oh, there are a lot in Virginia? Okay. I guess it's an East Coast thing. I never heard the name before, because I spent my whole life in California. But exactly. Okay, right. So, you and I ancestrally are sourced from the same general group of people, at least on one ancestor's side, somewhere. I'm gonna need my glasses or something. You see my glasses anywhere? Thanks. No relationship comes without obstacles and challenges to overcome, but if an INFJ and ENTP are lucky enough to meet, they will find someone who's a mind mate, a soulmate, and someone who can help them be the best they can.
Sorry, Kiki.
I agree with that. That also that no relationship comes without obstacles and challenges to overcome. And that's the thing, is when they're viewed as challenges to overcome in a relationship, then it's a good relationship, because when you have challenges and you're mutually determined to overcome challenges, well, that's like just um you know banking successes that are actually resolutional in some sense. So it's like Rachel and I have had some fights early in the relationship that we just won't have anymore ever again, because we've resolved those issues. Turns out they weren't problems. We don't need to talk about those old things anymore, because we to the extent that we had any sort of fight or whatever, it successfully resolved the thing. Hi, son. Cloud's calling me dad.
Wait, did you read the last paragraph? How it says like if the two are lucky enough to meet? How's like?
No, it's not luck exactly in our case. After all, it's not like you ran into me at the supermarket.
No, I think it was lucky.
I mean, it may have been lucky for you to have encountered my channel, but once you had encountered it, it was no longer luck that I met you. For me, anyway. It's like you made some decision at some point to get me to type you.
Yeah, but I didn't even know I was an INFJ.
Well, I know, but you
kind of lucky.
Yeah, I sure, baby. But I think you're not giving yourself enough credit.
Wait, what happened?
I think you're not giving yourself enough credit.
Oh, because I'm forgetting when I.
No, I'm saying you had more to do with this successfully coming together than you're giving yourself credit for when you're saying that it's luck.
No, I definitely put an effort too, but I didn't know that I was an INFJ.
And utilize FI users' moral frameworks. Okay, first of all, FI users don't have moral frameworks. They have interested calculi and interested frameworks and value. But remember, value is not the same thing as values or a value. So it's like FI helps you to understand what you want and maybe what's bothering you. Whether or not what's bothering you lines up with anything resembling morality is particular to the individual. Now, most healthy people find suffering makes them uncomfortable, for example. That doesn't mean that FI is the reason why people have morality. FI has nothing to do with morality. We know that because a lot of times, there are things called crimes. That's not, FI might be correct that it's bad what's happening in front of you, but it's incorrect that killing them. No, suffering is, there's two kinds of suffering. Avid bird watcher. There's emotional suffering and then there's physical suffering. Physical suffering is SI. Emotional suffering is FI. Nobody likes suffering. Well, the thing is, here's the thing. I like suffering sometimes. When I called Mercy Medical Center and yelled at them and busted their chops, I liked the fact that they were scrambling, that they were suffering. Is it suffering? It's justice. Is it justice for some people to suffer sometimes? Absolutely. That's part of the reason why we put people in jail. It's not just rehabilitation, it's retribution as well. It is appropriate that somebody who has been victimized attain just retribution for that. And sometimes that means the equivalent of an eye for an eye. Not literally. That would be unnecessarily barbaric. What qualifies as justice? Well, okay. So there are, if we're using the word properly, that which is just is that which is defensible. And beyond that, it's based. I guess actually, I'm sorry. Let me answer that differently, Jenna Shank. What differentiates justice from revenge? The legitimacy of the process by which the justice is attained is one answer to that. Another would be, abstract standards like proportionality, and what's another one? Well, I mean, you should involve a rights calculus as well. So if I violate somebody's rights, there's no disputing that I've committed an injustice. Now, there are lots of other kinds of circumstances that are less clear cut than that. But if I go and steal your purse, then I have victimized you. When one is victimized, it's a clear definitional line that we're talking about. In other words, if your negative right to be free from interference is violated, then you have been violated, So it's like to say that people have negative rights is to say that everybody has an obligation or a duty to not interfere with others in the proceedings of their duties without justification. Is retaliation that exceeds the crime ever just? Well, proportionality is a consideration in the calculation of justice. So we use the word, no, my own behavior is just. That's easy enough to answer. Or if my own behavior is just. If you're asking me, how do I know that that person's behavior is unjust or this person's behavior is just? I can give you very specific reasons as to why, and they would all link in under a central framework. Asking me as a general matter, what differentiates justice from revenge or what qualifies as justice without any specific circumstance to apply misunderstands the nature of justice. Justice occurs in responsiveness to the specifics of the case at hand. It doesn't ever occur without a case or without a specific case. So as a consequence, when you're talking about what's the metric that we're going to consistently use to determine what is just, it's hard to even begin describing that metric without giving some examples. So morality then there are two kinds of morality. One can be a good person by not being a bad person, or one can be a good person by attempting to be a good person. And those are different kinds of things. Negative moral obligations, prohibitions against bad behavior, are universal and logically provable and defensible. And there are correct answers and incorrect answers, and it's cut and dry. Because, of course, we're talking about something that needs to be legitimized as a universal. It needs to be legitimized. Sorry, Jenna Shank. Are you sure it's you? I hope it's not me. It shouldn't be me because I've got really good internet. But it also might be YouTube. YouTube is overwhelmed right now, I think. I'm pretty sure it's not me. So, but it might not be. It might be not you either. So, the thing is, this is how the system is currently designed. It sort of understands this is built as though it were the case. Positive moral indications are never universal; they're always particularist. I can tell you definitively what you ought not do, but nobody can tell you definitively what you ought to do. And so that's why there are two kinds of morality that every individual human being has and expresses some relationship to. The first kind of morality includes all prohibitions against bad behavior. The second kind of morality includes all indications towards positive behavior, which usually expresses altruism. Whether or not altruism is actually good, of course, the reason we can't come to any definitive answer to that is because positive moral indications are always specific to the particular instance. There's never an instance where we can apply a universal rule and get an answer about any positive moral indication. That doesn't mean positive moral indication. So what it boils down to is you've got human beings who are concerned about two kinds of things and achieving their goals and knowing how to get from point A to point B while being aware of, okay, if I can't have everything I want, which things do I want most and which things am I willing to let go of? There's that side of life. That's all the physical realm of life, the the real-time experiential part of life that includes FI, introverted feeling, TE, extroverted thinking, SE, extroverted sensing, and SI, introverted sensing. All those functions are native to that kind of being, which is the kind of being that you see, let's say, like a Wolverine. A Wolverine is a very solitary animal and opportunistic. A Wolverine is always going around looking out for itself and its own interests. And you are either a threat or a resource to it. It'll either fight you, make you go away, or kill you and eat you. And that's how it relates to other things in the world. It's entirely selfish. Humans, half of humans are that. The other half of humans are universalist and communicative and abstract. They're turn-based in their time flow, which is to say they use symbols rather than realities. And because we're using symbols, there are definitional limits and there are grammatical limits and to what can be expressed, and also how we need to understand by factoring in some realities about language, right? So those functions are extroverted intuition, which basically creates new meanings, introverted intuition, which knows meanings, introverted thinking, which parses out or determines the legitimacy of meanings according to grammar, and then there's FE, which understands and interfaces with social systems regarding those meanings, which are necessarily have to be therefore communicable and therefore universal, or else they're not going to. I mean, they have to be communicable because you're talking about interfacing with social systems, not with physical systems. And so the only way to interface with social systems is to communicate with people, with other agents. You're dealing with other agents, and so it's necessary for you to talk. So Cloud says, if someone spits in the face of your romantic partner, what is your response? Call the cops. I'd call the cops about that. I mean, it's somewhat dependent on the context. Like, I mean, is it just straight up they're intentionally doing that? And there's no, of course I wouldn't, no, Cloud, there's nothing that really anybody could do to provoke me to violence short of putting me in a situation where I didn't think I could survive or where if I didn't, it was either fight or suffer substantial injury or harm. Because the way the best way to guarantee you lose the argument is to get physical. So if somebody wants to get physical with me, it's like they can get physical with me. I can take a punch to the face, no problem. Because as soon as they hit me, they've lost all the arguments from that point forward. And they're at my mercy. And I can do whatever the fuck I want with them. Because they fucked up. You don't fuck up that bad around me. I will tear you to pieces. But the thing is, I have a bird watcher. Okay, right. Sure, that's why he punched me, but he didn't care about losing the argument. He got extremely lucky, though. Because here's the thing. Time continues after the fight. Time doesn't stop at the end of the fight. And unless he's killed me or successfully run away like a coward, which is what the military guy did, he hopped right back in his car and drove away, make sure I couldn't get his license plate number or call the cops on him, right? So yes, it's possible to, come up to me really fast, hit me, slap me, which is what he did, slap me, run away, get back in your car and drive away real quick. And because I'm kind of slow and oblivious about shit, get away with it. But you're only one person in my whole life can get away with that. One time that's going to ever be gotten away with, and it's already happened. Now, 99% of the time, that guy's in handcuffs, and I'm explaining to the cops in a very extremely articulate and believable way exactly what happened. And they're asking me if I want to press charges. And all of a sudden, homie's not nearly so tough anymore because he's there in handcuffs with the cops. I'm just standing there and going, well, he was a big pussy because it's like, I asked him, I said, are you going to use physical violence? And this coward did. Can you believe the cowardice? While he's standing right there, just fucking not talking to him, just talking to the cops about him in ways that are just eating him alive. He can't do anything about it now. Now he can't hit me. And let him get more belligerent, antagonize him, make him show his belligerence more to the cops, right? Then enjoy the testifying against him in court. And then when he's in jail, go visit him. That'd be fun. Go visit him in jail. When you come out, you should come slap me again, fuckhead. I enjoy this. That's what I mean by enjoying suffering, right? I enjoy justice. And justice sometimes involves suffering. Well, there is no social contract. The fact that that term of art even exists is a reprehensible rape of language. A contract involves consent from both parties. You can't be born into a contract. You're not able to consent when you're born, and certainly being born comprises consent to nothing. Not me. I want to win. I don't want to get away from him. I would much rather win completely, utterly. See him just broken and shamed before me. Fuck that. Get away from people like that. I make them fucking break. You're not going to be a douchebag around me without getting my foot up your ass metaphorically. If you try to put your foot up my ass literally, you're really going to get my foot up your ass metaphorically. And that's much worse than you actually striking me, whatever. So you punch me. Big deal. The worst thing about that instance that you're referring to is my sunglasses got run over by a car. Stupid woman. She saw the whole thing. She's sitting at the stop sign watching this whole thing go down. And then it's like after it went down, I was looking around again. And then it drives immediately directly over my sunglasses. And I'm just like, ah. Prior to that moment, it was like, I just got slapped. Oh my God, that's horrible. After that moment, I was like, okay, now this is fucked up. Now it actually cost me something. Yeah, well, they were Ray-Bans. They were like, $100 or whatever. I don't think I paid full price for them. I mean, I don't remember where I got them, but they were real Ray-Bans, and I had them for a long time. I had them for a long ass time. And they're like the first sunglasses I'd ever not lost, it seemed like. And they got run over by a car. And they were, of course, it's completely irreparable at that point. I one time lost a pair of like $200 sunglasses that were made out of wood that were really cool. That was sad. I left them on the front of the car, on the hood of the car. I mean, here's the thing. For matters of criminal justice, whether or not I'm generally not talking about criminal justice when I'm talking about justice. I'm talking about fucked up people doing fucked up things, and I don't like to think about it either. It was so sad. Anyway, it's a defeating and shameful feeling to have anger and lack of self-control to the point where you reduce yourself to violence. Well, I'll tell you, it's that's when I finally ended up leaving Kimberly or something like that, and at that point I realized I have to leave. I have to leave this relationship because This is no longer about I'm more stubborn than you. This is no longer about I'm more stubborn than you. This is now about you're controlling me. You're making me into a bad person. And I can't have that. I think this Constitution is the closest systemization for justice utilization in a humane world we've had today. There's a reason so many nations coveted and so forth. Well, yeah, the U.S. Constitution is great. It's great because it attempts to do what governments ought to do, which is people have a criminal, people have an entitlement to criminal justice when their negative rights are violated in a criminal fashion. And they have a right to civil justice when their assets are violated in a non-criminal but liability incurring fashion. So the number one job of the government, frankly, is people always say, well, it's to defend the borders. Okay, sure. But the thing is, that's not a job. That's a success criterion, right? If you say the job of the government is to prevent other countries from attacking you, be a military force, protect people with military from invasion and stuff like that, then for the government, because you could successfully enough do that job by doing nothing, provided you didn't get attacked, right? So it's more proper to say that the job of government is to make criminal and civil justice as close to real justice as possible. Now, what's real justice? Well, it's a combination of that which is inherently fair, which means that it doesn't create cognitive dissonance, and things that are unjust create cognitive dissonance. So, I say thee nay, you cannot say that every person can't judge because some people are dumb. For example, your judgment of what would be just is bad. Therefore, it's good you aren't in command. No offense. Whose judgment of what would be just? Mine? Or it's Cloud's? You talking to Cloud? Universal truth to keep fairness consistent. No, cognitive dissonance is not society-based. It's individual-based. But individuals are comprised on the metaphysical level of a lot of narratives that society provides. But the thing is, cognitive dissonance will occur if I'm the ambassador to Iran for the United States, and I'm having to argue to Iran that they need to sign these papers agreeing not to make nuclear weapons because they can't have nuclear weapons because that's bad. I'm going to experience cognitive dissonance if I'm sane at all. Why? What if I were the negotiator for Iran, what would I obviously say? But hold on a second. Aren't you the people who have more nuclear weapons than anybody? Well, yeah, but we're the United States. And you're coming here to tell us that we can't even get one nuclear weapon. Why is this? Is there some law that we're violating? There's no law about it. So they're not illegal. There's no international legality issue here. So why is it that we, Iran, a sovereign nation, can't build a nuclear weapon? Well, because you can't be trusted with one, Iran. Well, why can you be trusted with one? Well, because we're America. What makes you so much more trustworthy? Well, we have a democracy. Really? That's what makes you trustworthy? I mean, who's your president? Trump? Is that a good does that make democracy look like a good thing? It's like the people are good at making good choices at who the leader's going to be? No. So, what's LCD? Oh, lowest common denominator. So that's going to be cognitive dissonance. If you're going to argue, if you're the United States and you're trying to argue that Iran should not be able to get a nuclear weapon, and that if they try to, that we're going to get them in trouble or punish them in some fashion, we have to be either, willfully blind to hypocrisy, or willfully like wicked. In other words, not caring about righteousness or justice or truth or words at all. Look, I'm not saying it would be necessarily a great thing for Iran to get a nuclear weapon. I'm not saying I'm encouraging Iran to get a nuclear weapon or anything like that. But what I'm saying is it's laughable and embarrassing that the U.S. would even dream of making the argument to anybody else that they can't have nuclear weapons. It's like the guy in your neighborhood who has parked cars all over his front lawn and his backyard lawn and his driveway and in front of the curb in front of his house. And he comes out and goes, hey, you're not going to leave that barbecue on your front lawn, are you? That looks terrible. And you go, you've got to be fucking kidding me. If you looked at your own house, it's stacked up with cars and trash from top to bottom. Yeah, but I don't want to look at you having a barbecue on your front lawn. That's ugly. Well, I don't want to look at you having all your shit at your house. Why don't you get rid of all your shit then? Oh, no. Listen. Iran, we're not talking about us right now. We're talking about you, okay? You stop that. Shh. That doesn't matter. We've got more guns, so you have to. Oh, so why did you just say that in the first place? We're criminals, and so we're going to force you at gunpoint. Just say that if that's what you mean. At least you're telling the truth then. There's no legal justification for what the U.S. is doing regarding Iran's nuclear ambitions. None whatsoever. I mean, Cloud, here's the thing. What you say here is, let's imagine you're watching a movie and a rebel cowboy shoots the rapist, wicked criminal. We're all cheering for him. He did the right thing, even though he judged for himself. I mean, we're cheering for him, true. But he didn't do the right thing. And the right thing would have been to, if possible, apprehend the person and afford him due process and afford the community at large the opportunity to see justice done publicly. That would have been the right choice. But it's a movie. So our goals in the movie are to be entertained. And sometimes that entertainment appeals to our more prurient impulses, including the satisfaction of seeing the wicked get punished. It would make movies boring if every time a bad guy got punished in the movie made sure that they showed the whole due process of law thing. No, I mean, I don't assume the higher power has the better judgment. Oh, cool. Thanks. I'm not assuming the higher power has the better judgment. I'm saying that due process of law is preferable to the lack thereof. Yeah.
Do we have any Q-tips?
You know what? It's funny. I almost bought some yesterday at the Ralph's. Or not? No, it wasn't yesterday. Where did we go the day before? I almost bought CVS. I almost got some, but I didn't. I should have. Well, that's all. Be on my list of things to get.
Okay.
Are you? Are you? So here's what I might do at some point this evening.
Mm-hmm.
I may go to the weed store that's open from 6 p.m. to 3 in the morning.
Oh, cool.
Since we're mostly out of weed. And so what I'm basically saying is, are you going to a particular time frame? Would you like me to do that? Because you might not want to. You might want to go, but not if we're leaving a long time from now or something like that.
Okay, well, I am interested in going. I would like to go, and I'm actually getting pretty tired. Like I feel it. It feels nice.
And so you want to go like nowish?
Well, what do you think is best? I mean,
I would like for you to ideally just sort of take all those things we got, and maybe the other half a shot, and then
yeah.
and then your regular stuff too, if you have it still, right? You still have enough for today. Okay, take that regular stuff too.
Okay.
And then just lie down and try to go to sleep.
I think it's gonna happen.
And if it doesn't, but like that's give it a fair shake.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
But if it doesn't happen, then in like half an hour or something, and come out here, and then we'll take a drive to the weed store, and maybe you'll fall asleep in the car.
That sounds nice.
All right. So go try to fall asleep. If by 11, it's 10:20 now. And let's not say any particular time. But if at some point you're just tired of trying to fall asleep, and you're giving it a good fair effort, and you're not going to fall asleep, then at that point just come out here and say, okay, I do want to go to the weed store.
I mean, I do. I really do want to go. I think I'm game.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't take it now, I guess.
Stay up. What time is it right
now? It's 10:20.
Oh. It's later than I thought.
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend that you just let me go on this errand by myself tonight. I mean,
okay.
but here's the thing. Well, what I recommend is what I said. I'd say go try to go to sleep right now. If by 11 or so you still can't fall asleep, you took all those things and you still can't fall asleep, then come out here and say, let's go. And we'll go.
No, okay, that sounds great. Yeah, it sounds like a good idea. I'm feeling good, I have to say. I was actually going to use Pie a little bit more. It's helping.
Of course. Yeah, we're almost out of weed, so that's why we go to the weed store. Here you go. Let me pack you a bowl. Back in a bowl in the pink elephant, pinkest guy in the town. He's got a big trunk and a couple of ears, but he's not wearing a frown. 'Cause he's packed full of weed and he's smoking it up, and he's saying, now I'm feeling fine. Here you go, Rachel, there's a pack full of bowl for you now, just in time. Okay, so there's some very interesting questions being asked, and I really like the conversation here and what everybody's saying. People are saying really insightful, interesting, sort of incisive things that make me give real responses to stuff.
That's good.
What value supersede justice? Okay, so I mean, I guess, look, the thing is this. I would say that on a TE practical level, where you don't really have to define clearly what something is, then the highest value is a free society. And what exactly helps maintain a free society or works against a free society or is TI grounds, what value, or to put it this way, instead of, okay, what value super axiomatically determinant value.
Thank you, bro. Ooh. Thank you. Ooh.
I mean, the thing is, Cloud, this is a weird question too. And I'm interested in this and want to talk about it a little bit. So Cloud says, I find this scenario funny. Girlfriend gets spat in the face. Boyfriend, that's it. I'm calling the police. Girlfriend, I love my boyfriend. He's so protective. The thing about this is, it's why this it's one of the problems with hypotheticals. I don't in theory have a problem with hypotheticals in general or anything, but there's certain kinds of things that aren't really conducive to hypotheticals. It's hard to conceive of, like, if some random like homeless person comes and spits in somebody's face. The fact that she's my girlfriend has nothing to do with the question. It's just so Hambone, yeah, there are no values that supersede justice. All other values are subsumed by justice. But I'll try to repeat some things so that I know we're here that we're buffering. Okay, like in the scenario, I guess I'm imagining that you're probably imagining, and probably most people are imagining, that the person who's doing the spitting is another man who's challenging for your girl or something, or challenging your manhood in some way, right? But it's such a weird behavior to do. Okay, but okay, who cares if it's an ESP jock? My point is, why are they spitting in Rachel's face? Okay, but still, why is he spitting in her face? He has to have expressed some sort of reason for that, or is he just spitting in other people's faces? So he doesn't like me. Oh, so he's made a big scene. I mean, the thing is, where am I that this sort of behavior is going on? Okay, replace spitting in her face with hardcore hitting on her. So, I mean, the thing is, I'd win the encounter if he was hardcore hitting on her. I'd yeah, if somebody were hardcore hitting on her, I mean, the thing about that, again, there's a third person involved. It would depend on how Rachel responds and what Rachel does too. It's hard. I actually had the same conversation with Rachel earlier about, in general, what it means exchanges in real time, because you can't begin an exchange without saying things. You can't engage with me without saying things. And if you say things, I got you. That's it. If there's some sort of right? So it's like when you say, well, hardcore hitting on your girlfriend. Oh, my answer is, well, I'll win the exchange. But it's exactly how or whatever, I don't know. It depends on what they do. I'm an ENTP. Justice is an absolute term, like perfection. We aspire to it only. Things can be more just and less just. We're not truly just unless the ideal is achieved. I disagree. I say thee nay. I say thee nay. God, your name gives me trouble. I say thee nay. 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 It's a hard name to sound. A hard name to say. I say thee nay. Justice is an absolute term, like perfection. Things can be more just, less just. Incorrect, as far as I'm concerned. It works like this, and it's binary. Most examples. I'll start again. Look, I'm going to start again in response to this. Most examples of justice are binary matters. So if I'm found guilty of a crime, whether or not that guilty verdict is just or not can be answered quickly if you're factually innocent. If you're factually innocent and have the evidence to back it up, and that evidence somehow didn't make it into court and you put in jail anyway, and it's definitive factual evidence of factual innocence, and you are convicted of it, then it's binarily unjust. You can't say that's really unjust or definitely unjust, but not that unjust. It's simply unjust. Degrees don't matter. Now, in other words, degree of injustice doesn't matter. Now, it is also true that from a personal perspective, degree of injustice matters very much. Whether or not something was unjust is, to me, something might be technically unfair, but I don't care about it, so it's not really unfair. Whatever. On the other hand, questions of wrongful conviction are binary. Right. Hambone is exactly right. The problem with trying to put anything ahead of justice is what you're always saying is sometimes the ends justify the means. And sometimes I can do horrible things if my goal is noble enough. Because that's what justice as a primary value being upheld prevents. All right, so Jake Hurwitz says, what about subtly hitting on her in front of you and some friends and you don't want to lose an FE battle? Yeah, that would put me in a hard spot. That would put me in a hard spot indeed. If look, you're talking about a weak area of mine. If you're talking about like mating dance swagger, it's not my specialty at all. This is not something I've ever dealt with before, that somebody's doing that. The only way I would think it would really bother me is if Rachel seemed to be encouraging it, or if somebody's flirting with Rachel and I'm standing there and I watch her go, "You're so funny," and touch him on the shoulder, I don't know. I'm not sure how I'd deal with that. I'd probably just leave the place and walk away, and then deal with it later. Figure out what, then have to spend some time thinking, what it meant, what the hell was going on there. But that would be shockingly out of character for her to do that. So I don't expect that to happen. I mean, because then if that happens, the problem has nothing to do with flirting. The problem has to do with, oh, I don't know this person. Here she is being the opposite of a teammate. And yeah, I understood the implications. I totally opposed it. Okay, look, I say you got that thing backwards. And I want to tell you right now, I get it backwards all the time when I say it out loud. What you mean to say, I think, is if we allow the ends to justify the means, we are basically saying that the sum total of our daily experience with justice can be negative. Because means never are used to justify ends. In other words, the funny thing is, if you were to say these means justify the ends, you'd be saying, well, I know the ends aren't very good, but the way we're getting there is so good that we should do it anyway. Well, then why not just do the thing why not do that middle thing? Yeah. I mean, I get it backwards all the time too. When I say it out loud, I usually catch myself. Because what basically that expression means, you can't justify the means with the ends, is that because it's a separate question. It's trying to conflate two questions. This is the one problem I'm having right now. It's a little bit frustrating. But I think I have a solution for it. Is I'm having to lean forward to read the chat. So what I'm going to do is be smart and scoot the table closer to me. I'm going to scoot
You're
this.
acting like an INFJ.
Scoot this table a little bit closer. Yeah, Rachel is one of the people who, with that 8-slot SI, is like, it doesn't matter. Oh, I could just lean uncomfortably for the whole time. It's fine.
That's not true, actually. I can't lean the whole time, but like, iPhones are very like user friendly. They're so easy.
I believe it. That's some. That's like preferencing the absence of any need for TE over any of the other like benefits of the SI or whatever.
Yeah, and it bothers me that my screen on my laptop is worse than my screen on my phone. I'm like really techy.
When I think about the ends justifying the means, I think, is 1,000 years of suffering worth it for 10,000 years of prosperity? How about 10,000 or 100,000? Well, yeah. I mean, I think to meaningfully evaluate questions of ends and means, though, you have to consider time frame. So it's not exactly fair to say that because ends intuitively don't justify means when you're dealing with time frames beyond that scope of a human life. It's correct, but I mean, it's the case that, yeah, that intuitively doesn't seem to make sense in that context. But I don't think that actually is a very strong argument because obviously time counts is a consideration in value calculi. So it's like if you say, well, you can get this cheaper, but you have to wait 4 to 6 weeks for delivery. I'll usually get it more expensive and get delivery sooner. But I might be willing to get the slow delivery, but it better be a lot cheaper, right? If I'm gonna have to wait that long, 4 to 6 weeks.
For what?
For anything. I'm talking about how, like, that time is relevant. So if I say, well, all we have to do is suffer for two years deeply and continually for the next 2 years, and after that our life will be good. Even if I'm right, it's not worth it. It's people have to consider the experiential time frame as well, and the actual experience of suffering for 2 straight years is going to be so bad that it's not justified by whatever happens afterwards.
Like,
okay.
I don't find suffering.
Well, let me do the other half of the thing. I only did one half of it because on the other hand, if it's like, hey, it's just a quick pinch and then it's going to help you a lot, like a vaccine or something, or I know you're going to be uncomfortable in this bandage kitty, but once we take it off, it's going to be worth it to have the bandage on. The time frame's short enough that that's true. So we have to consider time frame when we're calculating whether or not a given proposed suffering in exchange for positive outcome long term is worth it or not. So that's the other half of the Rachel. Now please respond, because I didn't want to mislead you into thinking I was making an advocacy.
I said what I said. Just that I don't know. I don't know, suffering. Do you get used to it though?
I mean, I don't know. But you're okay. You're still here though in person. You're just leaving the live chat.
Yeah, I was like,
okay. So it's like, but the reality is we have to consider time frame when we're considering whether or not there's. Note that an exchange of temporary suffering for long-term benefit is not the same thing as that other thing we were comparing it to. Oh yeah, ends and means. So justifying the ends with the means. I mean, justifying the means with the ends. I see. I got it right there. Justifying the means with the ends is different from justifying temporary suffering with promise of long-term benefit. That's something that everybody does and should and must do all the time, is calculate those kind of value equations. Like, I don't want to go to the dentist, and that's going to be unpleasant there, but when I'm done going to the dentist, I will no longer have a toothache. And it's worth it to have the additional pain temporarily to have no pain long term.
Wait. Does that?
There's two ends of the equation, and we can only understand whether no pain, no gain is a good thing or a bad thing.
That doesn't sound good.
Well, what I'm saying though, Rachel, is it depends on the time frame. If in fact you're getting a vaccine and you're enduring a short pain of a pinch in your little pain for this massive gain.
Yeah.
But if no pain, no gain is like, no, you need to be constantly suffering to be good in life. Well, that's just silly. Obviously, certain things require effort or discomfort to achieve, and some of them are justified. It's worth doing that effort and discomfort, and some stuff it's not.
Yeah, some stuff isn't. It's true. I will say though, when it's earned, there's something you want to keep about it. I don't know.
When what's earned?
So, like, say you're suffering,
but
like, it's just, I don't know. I mean, okay, yeah, you can like jump from A to B and not have to like do anything in the middle. But I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. I sound stupid, and I like feel insecure on like talking right now.
I'm sorry you feel that way, Rachel.
It's okay.
So let me address this thing here, right? If we had some fifth dimensional perspective, it would essentially nullify the notion of choice anyway. Choice really has meaning from our forward-facing, past-reflecting linear restriction. Well, I mean, choice, in my opinion, Dustin Salisbury, the idea of choice or free will is implicit specifically to conditionality. That because we have symbols that operate in a turn-based time approach rather than a real-time or linear approach, as well as the experience of linear time passing, but because the map aspect of human existence, as opposed to the experience aspect, is done in turn-based time, we have conditionality. And so I can conditionally imagine taking action A and action B, predict what's going to happen in action A and predict what's going to happen in action B. And so because I can do those things, then and because I can do those two things, and because I can also express affirmations or negations of things, it's the case that things that we have to have choice. In other words, language requires there to be choice, because language requires us to be able to represent something that appears as choice to when we look at other subjects doing things. So I can't necessarily say, maybe let's start here. Let's pretend I can't necessarily say for sure.
So is suffering like needed or not?
No, suffering is, what I'm saying is the question of the sufferings versus, like, we're talking about ends justify the means, which is not a question that involves questions of suffering at all. But somebody else indicated that justifying temporary suffering for long-term gain, and tried to indicate that as sort of equivalent to the issue of ends and means. or maybe even presented it as an example of ends and means, which it's not. So I corrected that person and said, no, that would be an example of exchanging short-term suffering for long-term benefits. There's a third one that could also be conflated, which is the justifying of concentrated harm for diffuse benefits. That's another kind of ends justifying the means kind of a thing.
What is that?
Well, to justify concentrated harm for diffuse benefits is something that happens every time anybody goes, let's raise taxes on the rich. Only a few people will be harmed. They'll be maybe harmed dramatically, but millions and millions of people will benefit. So that's what's called justifying concentrated harm for diffuse benefits. This is what, what we have right now, which is the first time I think maybe ever in history this has happened. We're justifying diffuse harm by appealing to diffuse benefit or concentrated benefit, actually, because there's a small number. No, yeah, we're justifying diffuse harm with concentrated benefit right now with this virus thing. It's okay that we're having this widespread universal harm because a subset of the population that is at high risk, will be better protected if by this massive diffuse harm. It's not the way people normally justify things at all. It's weird, and of course, it doesn't withstand any scrutiny at all. It's like the justifying concentrated harm by appealing to diffuse goods. That's not justifiable, really. You can't defend that, really. But you certainly can't defend the opposite. That's crazy. No, we are the people are justifying it. The only reason that people are doing what they're told regarding this is because the people who disagree with it believe the social harms of standing against it outweigh the possible benefits of standing against it. No, Cloud, I wouldn't. That would be immoral. However, if I push a button to shift the train from the track with 100 people on it to the track with one person on it without having any responsibility for the negative morality. I mean, the reason people are obeying it is simply this, and this is what it always boils down to. Okay, so look, if there's a train track and there's let's just do 5 guys on the track, okay? Now, in the first instance, there's 5 guys on one track and there's 1 guy on another track. And if you pull the lever, the train will go from the track where it's going to kill 5 people onto the track where it's going to only kill 1 person. Should you pull the lever? The answer is yes, you should. There's a pretty universal positive indication there, but regardless, you're not morally obligated to, but it's okay to pull it because somebody's going to die no matter what, and you're not responsible for it no matter what. You're not responsible for anyone's death no matter what happens. If you don't switch the track, you're not responsible for the 5 people's death. If you do switch the track, you're not responsible for the 1 person's death. However, if you go, oh my God, I'm gonna give you a better fat man variant, okay? Better fat man example, Hambone. Oh my God, this very large man is sitting in the passageway. We need to get past him to save Joe, who has a heart attack back there. We need to go rescue him. It's not okay to kill the fat man to get past him to go rescue Joe, right? It is okay to like move some chairs or something. I don't know. That'd be the equivalent. You can't kill a fat man just because he's preventing you from saving Joe. If he's not doing anything willfully. Now, if he's willfully like actually trying to fight you and stuff, well, then it becomes self-defense and becomes complicated. But if he's a deaf, mute, blind person who's sitting there and is just unable to move, and there's no way he's going to move in time for you to save Joe, well, you can't. No, because that's not where the responsibility comes from. The responsible party is the killer, the train. If you're going to sue somebody, you're going to sue the train. It might be true that your decision is responsible for causing party C to harm B, to do its harm to party D instead of A, but that's still not your responsibility. It's still them doing it. So the fact that the cops are staking out the park where the serial killer goes and murders people who are jogging, and that causes the serial killer to go to a different park and murder some different person, doesn't mean the cops are responsible for that person's death any more than they are in the first party, Again, I wouldn't push the button to slay anybody. It would have to be a switch kind of a thing. And I probably wouldn't flip the switch unless it was massively clear that one outcome was substantially better than the other. I probably wouldn't do anything because I'd still be thinking about it before the train was still, it's like, I don't want my hands involved in that at all. I don't want any kind of hint of responsibility for it. I got nothing to do with it. If I get involved in some extent, I might not know enough. Maybe I think I'm going to switch the train track. Instead, I cause the train to derail and kill everybody on the train. Yeah.
Can I put this on the board?
Of course. So I don't have that much like arrogance or whatever, I guess, about my own predictions. And that's what ends justifying the means is. It's having arrogance about your own predictions. Okay, you're going to guarantee this person incurs these violations of their rights. And we're supposed to believe your prediction that it's going to overall help. Well, if you're wrong in your prediction, that person's still fucked. I mean, look, the reason, Bacon, that you can't be obligated to take positive action is because let's say you see a drowning child and you're walking by. And should you jump in and save him? Not if you can't swim. Not if you don't notice him. Not if a million other things. So there's no universals regarding positive obligations. So yeah, there's no positive obligation to save somebody, even if it seems like it would be easy for you to do. Now, however, it should be noted that that doesn't mean there aren't and shouldn't be social consequences if you fail to do that. So if you are like, there was this guy who lived at this place where people sped a lot, I guess, in their cars, and he was one of those like busybody neighbors that was always yelling probably at people, slow down. Anyway, somebody was speeding along the thing and they crashed and they were dying in the car, and they're like taunting them for getting what they deserved as speeders. Now, is that criminal of him? No. Did he make any, as far as I'm concerned, did he violate any moral obligations? No. But do I think he's a scumbag? Yeah. Would I condemn him heartily for his behavior? Yeah. Do I think others ought to condemn him? Sure. There's social consequences for being a scumbag. Was his behavior technically within the bounds of moral permissibility on a negative rights calculus? Yes. It's morally permissible. But it doesn't mean he's not a scumbag.
Who?
The guy who taunted the teenagers who were dying in the car. So they were speeding, and he lived someplace where I guess they had a lot of speeders, and he was always yelling at speeders and getting upset about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these guys were speeding, and they crashed. And instead of helping them as they were dying in their car, he filmed himself taunting them and saying, "This is what you get as speeders for speeding. This is why now you're going to crash." And and people got outraged, of course, because you got two teenagers dying in front of you, and you're taunting them in their last moments about the justice of their accidental death. And of course, it was not just; it was unfortunate.
It is an unfortunate thing. That's something you just like don't know, and it's a very important. I don't know. Speeding is not good.
Well, Cloud, I mean, the point you're trying to make is that we have to factor in amount of life lived there. When you say the baby for 299-year-old decaying sick man, you're saying we have to factor in how old the person is as when we consider the value of their life or the amount of justice that's been occurred. But it's not true. It's like we can't justify like that. Regardless, it may be the case that it's more tragic when a baby dies than when an old man dies. But that doesn't mean we can justify killing an old man to save a baby. I was dropping off a friend one day from school and noticed a female neighbor with her head pressed against the steering wheel, appearing passed out. Do I have a moral obligation to help? You have no moral obligation to help that's universalist. In other words, I can't put it this way. If you don't help, you're not guilty of any more of doing. Sure. I mean, the thing is, the organ transplant issue is a different one. Really, it's a tricky question. Probably it ought to be dependent on how they attained the organ and other things like that. Okay, I'm going to end this live stream next. I'm running out of batteries on my laptop, and it's looking like maybe Rachel wants to go to the weed store now.
Oh, I was gonna go into bed.
Oh, you're going to go to bed? Okay, cool.
Yeah. So.
All right. Then I'll plug this in, I guess, and continue. Because I am enjoying this conversation.
Yeah.
So are you cool with the plan as we originally planned it, where you're going to go in there and then take all your stuff, and if you can't sleep, you can come out and we'll go to the weed store?
Yeah, I feel like you should just go.
Okay, yeah, I will. I'm going to assume you're going to sleep, okay?
Yeah.
So,
No big deal.
if I'm gone, if you get up and I'm gone, and I went to the weed store, I'll have my phone. You can call me, okay? If you're worried.
I can't. Okay, thanks.
So I'm just saying, if I do leave without you to the weed store, I'm not going to go in and check because I don't want to wake you up if you are asleep. But I will have my phone on me, and if you get up and I'm not here, call me. Just maybe make you feel better or feel reassured that everything's kosher. I am where I say I'm going and stuff like that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, where is it?
It's all the way fucking by like the airport, kind of. It's quite a ways away, but it's the only one is obviously right now. Double no traffic because it's late and it's virus time. So, might as well go there.
Yeah, but
And weed stores are a necessary service according to California, so they're going to be open.
Yeah. How nice.
All right, good night, baby. I love you.
I love you too.
Don't forget to eat plenty of dream cheese in your dreams tonight.
I will.
Okay, good.
Night.
Night. Yeah, you just go knock on the window. Hey, you okay? If they don't respond, then you call the. If you don't respond, then you probably want to open their door if it's unlocked. But otherwise, if it's locked, then you call the cops or something. Good. I'm glad to hear that my entreaties that you're not. Dream cheese needs to be the name for a non-dairy substitute for cheese. There's some product I was thinking about the other day. Besides, of course, my hat with pockets invention. I want to go on a Shark Tank with my hat with pockets invention. okay, I need $500,000 to make a proper prototype of this. It's a hat with pockets. Why are we not taking advantage of this in the status quo? Well, because nobody's a genius inventor like me, obviously. Thanks to the pocket, as it's called, special. Okay, let me give you the sales pitch, the whole sales pitch here, okay? Because you're going to love it. You're going to love it. You're going to want to invest your $500,000 in this right away. What I do is I take real ladies' denim jeans and I cut out the part of the pants with the pocket on it. And then I attach it to the hat like that. So it's not like the hat has pockets. It's the hat has pants that have pockets. That doesn't exist yet. It's a hat that has pants that has pockets. Okay? So that's what makes it such a special invention. That's why I need $500,000 of your money to make a proper prototype of it. This prototype I have right now is I actually worked on my document, MBTI document, not MBTI, but whatever document today. It's called Cognitive Function Intro Overview. And it's the most delightful and delighting delight you'll ever delight in. Guaranteed your money back. I am both a hat expert and a pants expert. Oh, you're going to need 90% of the company, huh? Okay, well, that's a deal because, I actually, I don't really expect it to be a company. I'm just going to sort of get the prototype for myself, and then that's it. That's my plan here, really. I don't want to bullshit you. I mean, I don't want to do all that business stuff. I mean, talk about boring. Yeah, take 100% of it's never going to make any money. I'm just going to take the prototype when I'm done making it. I'm going to hire a bunch of unnecessary people to do work that's not needed to make a prototype that will never be turned into a product. Would you like to invest $500,000? I want to be completely upfront about my plan initially. There's no chance for you to profit at all in this. I mean, morally, sort of spiritually, there's big profit. There's a lot of metaphysical equity to be had for a lot of real money. No. I'm offering you metaphysical equity for real money. I didn't admit you're trying to scam me. That's not a bug, it's a feature. Hambone. Problem I call opportunity. What you call scam, I call sell. What do you stand on the death penalty? I'm opposed to it. Well, the first part of it's just an outline I was talking from. The objectivity, subjectivity part is actually pretty, I try to be pretty chopped down about it, Let's see what it says. The new part that I did today starts on page 7. Introduction. Much confusion persists regarding personality and cognitive functions, and much of this confusion can be linked to the haphazard way in which people use the word objective. A successful explanation of how or why people are as they are begins with a correct articulation of how subjects and objects play out in grammar. A more wholly realized explanation begins even further back into the machine code of language. B. Words and money. It's always the case that to say something is to express meaning about either a subject or an object or an agent. Any experience or meaning that may exist, but that doesn't link to a subject, object, or agent, is experience or meaning that is both incomprehensible and incommunicable, because language is that which renders information about agents, subjects, and objects fungible. To elucidate, I provide the following analogy. And the analogy here is how money works. So essentially, what I'm getting at here is language is the money of experience. It's how we make our experiences universally exchangeable rather than stuck in the particular. So anyway, B, words of money. It's always the case that to say something is to express. I read that already. When people work, they make themselves useful to others. When Joe spends all Saturday helping Frank move, Frank becomes beholden to Joe. Joe may provide the help altruistically with no expectation of reciprocity, but Frank nevertheless understands that he owes Joe in some fashion. Let me make this a little bigger. Got to increase the view size. The zoom, it's called. 200% so much better than 100%. Because Joe provided so much help to Frank, when Joe asks Frank for a small favor, it will be difficult for Frank to say no. And if Frank does say no, then Joe's unlikely to be so willing to help Frank again. After all, Frank doesn't seem to appreciate what Joe had done for him very much. I got to plug in my laptop because it's running out of electricity. And the thing about these laptops that they don't tell you is they only work when you put electricity into them. That's how they get you. That's how they sneak one by you. There it is. There's the hole. Okay, kitty, come on. I'm going to close this blind as well. Did I successfully meow my Nana? Or does my meow remain unmeowed? Okay, here we go. Reciprocity. The above paragraph describes reciprocity, a vector that's implicit to being a social creature with language. But Joe and Frank's kind of reciprocity doesn't work as a means of attaining things in general, because it limits one's productive engagements to a few close relationships. Sometimes what one needs done is more involved than lifting boxes. If I'm looking to acquire a specific book, for example, and no one I know already has it, then I'll have to engage a non-intimate to acquire it. Acquire it. Why do I always misspell acquire? Number one question. Number two question is, why doesn't it autocorrect it? Did I misspell it? No. Why did you tell me there was something wrong with it? I guess it's a frame of reciprocity. Even if both parties trust each other to be reciprocal, reciprocity requires time and attention, and these impacts often so outweigh these costs, often so outweigh the benefit sought that willing participation ceases to be a matter of reciprocity and becomes a matter of altruism. Beholdens. When I help you now, reciprocity means I can expect you to provide me some sort of equivalent value at some point in the future. But I have to keep track of both the instances of utility I provide for others and those where others provide utility for me. And this paradigm of informal record keeping becomes extremely cumbersome if applied to more than one or two specific other people. So cumbersome is reciprocity, in fact, that it forms a hard ceiling on human endeavor. Thus, we have to find some other methodology of dealing with each other besides reciprocity. Barter versus reciprocity. The stranger is unlikely to even consider lending his book to me. To even afford the request an audience is to incur costs that exceed the expected reciprocal benefits. If I offer to trade books right now, the operational costs of beholdens don't come into play. I can engage in a one-off exchange and never see the person again. Attaining a desired outcome requires an event and does not require a relationship that persists across time. Subjective or particularist equivalence. There's two kinds of equivalency. I can trade my book A for your book B, even though they are different books, because the value to me of both book A and book B is a matter of subjective equivalence. Hamlet is more valuable to me than Romeo and Juliet because I've not read Hamlet and I've already finished Romeo and Juliet, so let's trade. And even though I admit that I'm getting something more valuable to me and you are getting something less valuable to me, I'm not trying to swindle you. That kind of value equivalence is subjective. I'm hopeful that you will have the same kind of value relationship with the two books, just in reverse. If so, it's win-win. We both gain subjective profit from the exchange. Objective or universalist equivalence, however, is different. Sometimes you aren't just dealing with book A and book B. Sometimes there are multiple copies of book A. In this example, let's imagine you've 10 brand new copies of book A and 10 used copies of book A. Now let's say Frank comes to you with a brand new copy of book B and wants to trade it for a brand new copy of book A. Say copy 3 of book A. Now I take book B. I agree to this, so I take book B and then I give Frank A2, the second new copy of book A, instead of the third. But Frank agreed to trade for A2, not A3. So is he going to accept A3? Neither Frank nor I can meaningfully distinguish between the new copies. Without physically altering the copies in some way to individuate them, it's not even possible for Frank or me to know whether I gave him the third or the second copy of the 10 brand new copies I have. It's not even meaningful to number them as first or second or third copy. It's just sufficient to know that there are 10. The new copies of book A are objectively equivalent. However, if I were to give him one of the used copies of book A that I have in exchange, when I said I'd give him a new copy, then he would have a reason to complain, because a used book is one that has in fact been physically altered such that it's no longer objectively equivalent to a new copy. So we've talked about there being two kinds of equivalence, right? Subjectively equivalent means it's valuable to me, and equivalent, it has nothing to do with money. Objective value. Money, ground limits. Money includes all currencies and all precious metals where the value doesn't link to utility. It does not include commodities like oil or wheat where the value does link to utility. That's how I'm defining money. Instead, it represents the capacity to get others to help you attain outcomes that you subjectively value. In fact, a good definition of money might be that which is universally and exclusively instrumental. So, we're talking about two kinds of objective value here, or equivalence. Objective equivalence says that the value of copy 1 of book A and copy 2 of book A, provided they're both brand new copies, is equal. And you can exchange them without any change of value. That it's only valuable in what it lets you do rather than in and of itself. Instead, it represents the capacity to get others to help you attain outcomes you subjectively value. In fact, a good definition of money might be that which is universally and exclusively instrumental. Fungibility. However, in practice, any fungible commodity can be treated as though it has objective, though unstable value. When we can successfully ignore variance among individual instances of a thing, it's sensible and inevitable to do so. If you order a pound of Arabica coffee beans, I don't need to select a grouping of individual beans to send you. I doubt your beans one by one will not produce more subjective value on your end. Thus, ignoring fungibility runs counter to your own interests and the interests of other people. So there's these three kinds of economic value, which are subjective equivalence, and objective value, are correlates or analogs in this analogy to the three angles articulated above: agent, subject, and object. The analogs are services, non-fungible goods, and fungible goods, respectively. So when we look at money, we understand it better now. It's that that which can be exchanged for services, for non-fungible assets or goods, for fungible assets or goods. So objective economic value is fungible stuff. Subjective economic value is non-fungible stuff. And agential economic value is services. Now, remember, there's lots of stuff that's technically non-fungible that we treat as though it were fungible. The only thing that's genuinely and truly completely fungible is money, as defined above, including precious metals where the value doesn't link to the utility. Okay? But we treat other things like money, such as oil or commodities. Okay? So I think I actually explained that in this upcoming paragraph. Boats should float. And it's okay if they don't fly. In fact, if making them fly prevents them from adequately floating, then they should not fly. Much that is subjectively valued cannot be bought with money. Money may be the inevitable destination of reciprocity, but reciprocity links strongly to that which is universally and publicly defensible. Individuals will always also have consensual mutuality, where no exchange is made, but where instead the interaction itself comprises the desired outcome. So when we talk about money, we readily accept the idea that if you want to pay someone to like you, you are using money wrong. That's because, where's my lighter? Here it is. That's because your mom's face has my semen all over it again. That's because on the other hand, I can pay someone to act like they like me because that's a service, and services are among the things money can buy. Again, money can't buy somebody else's feelings because that's not a service. One can buy somebody else's behavior because it is. And it's also not a good, it's not a fungible or a non-fungible good or asset. Well, the point is, language is the money of experience. The whole point of it is that it renders those aspects of our experience that are communicable. In other words, it converts them into fungible form. My yawning is non-fungible. It's exclusive to me. It's not something I can share with you. It's non-transferable. It's experienced by me, and I can never give you the experience of my yawning. However, I can give you the word yawn, which is able to indicate to you the experience that you probably have that you can relate it to, or the experience that you can see in the world in general that you can say this is the equivalent of. So people tend to know by way of equivalence or by way of familiarity. Those are the two main vectors, NI and SI. It's been a good couple of days. It's been interesting. It's been revelatory, I guess. It's great to see Rachel growing via, I guess, metacognition and being a meta-analyst, She is one for sure. She doesn't pay any attention to sensory data at all, hardly. But she definitely sees SE as a relief function. I get that clear as day. When we're out driving around and doing stuff, she's not as in her head as much. And that I finally answered today. How is SE a relief function for NI? I never really quite intuitively felt how that would be. Well, the expression, well, she just keeps her out of her head. That sort of makes sense. Well, that's where, the thing is, you're trying to bake in, when you ask that question, aren't a damaged book and a non-damaged book potentially identical in value to those who can't read? You're trying to exclude the initiating exchange from the equation, Remember that all economic exchanges are initiated by some party for their reasons of their own. So we don't. It doesn't have value outside of some initiated exchange. Now, a person who's blind and can't read is going to have no value for the book, so it's not going to initiate any exchanges seeking to acquire a book. Well, what I mean by that is I'm watching her safely and successfully make correct meaning about something that's very difficult to make correct meaning about. When I say that she's having, she's experiencing mental health problems flaring up. And basically, those mental health problems can be boiled down to a sleep disorder. She can't sleep. And when she doesn't sleep, I'm not exactly sure why, but I can roll like this. When I lose a lot of sleep for about a week or two, I then catch up on a lot of sleep for about a week or two. So it's I'm never running a deficit. By the time I'm done with Addie and go off of it, sleep's not a problem for the first couple of days at all. It's easy squeezy, super relaxing and comforting. She doesn't have anything like that. I don't think she ever really fully sleeps. It's weird. She's never so asleep that she doesn't wake up if I come in or out of the room. She is a very light sleeper, even when she's on a shit ton of hardcore sleeping pills. It's like last night she stayed up all night on hardcore sleeping pills. From the pharmacy, didn't seem really be tired at all, even though she was taking all of her meds. But today we also got her to help tonight to make sure she sleeps. We went to the supermarket. I got her Z-Quil, which is like NyQuil. Another sleep aid that's a different sleep medicine, and then chlorotrimazole, which is another very drowsy inducing antihistamine to go along with the trazodone she's taking and the Klonopin, I think it is, and lithium. But I don't think lithium makes her sleep. I think the other ones are there to make her sleep. So is objective equivalency simply agreed upon subjective equivalency? No, I mean, objective equivalency is the quality of fungibility. Things are objectively equivalent when there's no difference between individual instances of a thing. Like, let's say you're in line at the drive-through at the McDonald's. Yeah, we talked about that today, actually, Hambo. I'll talk about that in a second. But the person in front of me in line orders a large coffee, and I order a large coffee, and I see from my car that they pour the other person's large coffee and set it on the counter, and they pour my large coffee and set it on the counter, and I get to the first window, and they give me a large coffee, and I go, hey, I saw what you did. You gave that guy my large coffee. Now, assuming they both have no cream and sugar in them, okay, so they're identical, they're both black, large black coffee. So I get my cup, I look at it, large black coffee, and I go, this isn't mine. You gave the other guy my coffee. I saw the order in which you poured them, and you poured his first because he ordered first, and then you poured mine, but you gave him mine. And the McDonald's would be reasonable to say, well, what's the problem with this large black coffee? It's the same as that one. It's not any different. Well, I mean, that wasn't intended for me. What do you mean it wasn't intended for you? Well, you poured it for him, regardless, if you want to win this argument, you're going to have to point to some sort of distinction between the product you didn't get and the product you did get. And that's what it boils down to, is the inability to make a meaningful distinction between object A1 and object A2, which are identical or functionally identical. So you have some borderline stuff, like produce is not exactly fungible, though. Like, what are they called? Pinto beans. You're not going to go through the pinto bean bin and pick out the beans you like, right? That's just silly. Those are fungible. If like, let's say the equivalent thing happened, you poured yourself a pound of beans, and somebody else in the store poured themselves a pound of beans, and they're sitting in the plastic bags right there, and they grab and they're both exactly a pound, and they grab your pound of beans. You might as well just grab their pound of beans rather than pour yourself a new bag of beans. If they did grab your pound of beans, the only problem you'd have with it is that, shit, now I got to pour myself another pound of beans. You wouldn't be like married to those beans. God, these beans I got in this bag aren't as good as the ones I had before that guy took. I personally hate black coffee. I only drink coffee with shit tons of non-dairy, powdered non-dairy creamer in it. That's the best way to drink coffee. Not milk, not liquid creamer, powdered non-dairy creamer. It's the key to a good cup of coffee. Would you promise to be true and help me understand? Because I've been in love before, and you're such a stupid whore. Na, 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 na. Okay. So the point of all that reading was to get to, which I didn't actually get to in the document yet, is that objectivity is like this. We have things that are, first of all, when we use the words objective or subjective, we should remember, we're talking about either from an agent perspective, from a subject perspective, or from an object perspective. So if we're talking about objects and whether they're objective or not, we're talking about them as though they were data, and the objective quality is simply, can other people verify this independently of me? Can they come look at it by themselves and make their own determinations and confirm whatever claims I'm making about it? Or is that kind of data not available generally, in which case it's subjective data? Objective data is things like, well, this study by these people here says that 50% of dogs over the age of 6 become socially awkward. Then you can look it up and see if it does say that. And that sounds like, what kind of study is that? 50% of dogs over 6 years old become socially awkward? That can't be right, Eric. And I give you the citation. Here's a citation. You look it up and you're like, well, I guess there is a study, but then you can evaluate it yourself. You can say, I got to see what their methodology was and what the fuck they're talking about here. This is ridiculous. And you read it all and you go, okay, Eric, I understand you were citing a real study. Good. Credit to you, but you needed to read it more carefully because the methodology is insane and it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And so it doesn't have any legitimacy, even though it is a double-blind study. Like, I don't know why you would be arguing. Why you would need that citation? What would you be arguing for? You needed to cite a study that proved that dogs over the age of 6, half of them become socially awkward. Social awkwardness in dogs. Society's next epidemic. Maybe the clickbaity title of that study. We've got to do something about the growing plague of socially awkward dogs. May I continue pursuing my shell-defacing enterprise? What's a shell-defacing enterprise? I want to know what that is. So subjective. One of the big problems in cognitive functions is Jung saying TI is subjective has created this clusterfuck of wrongness that I'm battling against here. Why he insisted on saying that, I don't know. He seemed to mistake the term. He seemed to mistake introversion for being of the subject and extroversion for not. But of course, the subject is the one who's doing the extroverting. I think you're heavy. I look, to the extent that I think you're an FI user, I think it's probably because I incorrectly remember you saying you were an ENFP. I sort of am operating under the assumption you're an ENFP. Maybe you didn't say that, or maybe I don't know. I don't have any in my head right now. I can't think of me having any thoughts about you being an FI or not, really, based on observed things other than me seeming to recall you saying you were an ENFP. So, all right. Well, one thing that Rachel hypothesized is she heard her parents discuss how at some point in her young childhood, when she was in a crib ages, that they decided that they were going to take the approach of letting her cry herself to sleep rather than bringing her into the bed with them. Rachel doesn't. I mean, I guess she hypothesizes that maybe that's why. But I mean, the reality is, to me, her thoughts about that can be boiled down to it's an appalling notion. It's appallingly bad parenting to read a book that says you really should let your kids cry themselves to sleep and then do that. And when it works, feel like that was a good idea. Talk about abdicating your responsibility to make decisions from how much you care about your child. Delilah always was welcome to sleep with me anytime she wanted to. She still slept with me until she was like 10 years old. Periodically, she'd come into bed, I'm not really sure if she has since then or not. I didn't ask her that. It's a good question. TI has a higher likelihood of being true, but it's still technically a subjective function. We just have bad FI feelings towards the word subjective. But what makes it subjective? So look, here's the thing. I gave you, we both agree on the definition of objective or subjective data, right? That something's objective when other people can access it and verify it independently. Something's subjective when they can't. So the fact that I feel meow about meow is subjective data because only I have access to my own feelings directly. You can't verify that independently. Now, if we agree about data, so do we agree about how we're going to define objective and subjective about the data that's external? Not about TI right now. We're just talking about data. Do we agree that's a good definition for objective and subjective for data? Assuming we do. So the individual can make more than one kind of calculus or calculation. And it's true that human beings can make both objective calculations and subjective calculations. Note that an objective calculation is not a calculation about objective data. That's different. How we use objective, I'm referring to external to us or data internal to us, is different than how we refer to people's deliberative calculations with the words objective and subjective. Okay? So do we agree that it's at least true that humans do make both objective calculations and subjective calculations? Assuming we agree on that. Well, our calculatory functions, we define those means of deliberation that we have as TI and FI and cognitive functions. And if you're active when talking about the deliberative processes and not data, is disinterested or interested calculus. FI definitionally is an interested calculus. TI definitionally is a disinterested calculus. We also know it's universal and not particularist. So we know for sure it's not subjective because validity is universal. And all my TI arguments are my TI is good because it withstands public scrutiny, not because it withstands private scrutiny. That's what makes something TI legitimate. It has to be defensible. TI legitimacy is attained through argumentational defensibility, which means other people have to evaluate my TI as legitimate, or it's got to withstand their scrutiny. So TI may occur within me, but then all cognitive functions do. That's why we can't use that as a means of determining the objective and subjective if we're going to make the distinction at all. No, look, FI and TE, FI does not internalize something, and TE doesn't externalize something. So instead, what happens is FI calculates information, and TE interfaces with physical systems. What that means is when you're using FITE in conjunction with each other, you're saying, well, what do I want? Am I successfully getting it with this approach to this physical system? Okay, well, now it looks like this. Let me double check. What did I want it to look like again? Oh, yeah, I want it to look like that. I want these and I want that and I want this. So how am I doing getting to where I'm going? Okay, cool. I made some progress. I'm getting closer to what I want. Now I need to remember again, what do I want again? Oh, yeah, that's what it looks like. Now I'm getting closer again. That's how FITE works. It's an interested calculus. It's foundationally built on the notion of knowing what you want to attain or achieve or solve or accomplish. No, it's not. NI is what's truly a good thing. So FI would say, but I really want to do it this way. I want it to be like this. I want it to look like this. I don't care if it's useful. And TE is in the service of FI. In other words, it's subsumed by the values of FI, will prioritize the appearance, even at the expense of sort of universal utility, because that's what the person wants. No, NI is not want. That's absolutely incorrect. You couldn't be any wronger. FI is not good, bad. FI is value. I value this a lot. I'm attached to it or I'm detached. Attachment, detachment. That's FI. NI is identity. So look, what's proto-NI? Let's go to protos. Let's do the protos because this explains things a lot. We can see what SI looks like in babies very early on. It's called object permanence. When you play peekaboo with a baby, and you lift your hands and the toy's there, and then you cover them up and the toy disappears. When babies are very young, they don't know that the object's not disappearing and reappearing. They assume it is. Why do they assume it's disappearing and reappearing? Because experientially, that's what they're knowing. Okay? However, to successfully know experientially, in other words, to utilize SI, means to learn to render that external object as an object, not an agent. So just because if you were to disappear and reappear again, it would mean you were doing something. Doesn't mean that because this thing disappears and reappears again, it's doing something. As a matter of fact, it's an object and it has permanence. Object permanence is an SI frame because it's not about the identity of the object. It's about the identity of the self. It's saying my experience is proving to me, and I'm learning over time through what I know from experience, that if I don't move objects or nobody else does, that they stay in the same place. I'm going to be able to generalize that NI rule from the SI experience. The thing is, here's an example of NI in its protoform. It's called shape constancy. So I know that this is a lighter, and this is a lighter, and this is a lighter, and this is a lighter. It's not provable. It doesn't. The data is contradictory to it. In fact, this looks totally different than this. How could it be the same thing? Because we're looking at it from a different perspective. But it's the same thing because it has an identity. It's not just a perception. It persists in itself as an identity, and so as such, like any other thing that has an identity, you look at it from different directions. It doesn't make it a different thing. That's what NI is. It's understanding the distillation of the whole. You might say it's an awareness of what's the most determinate factor as well. Now, remember also, when we're talking about functions, how they operate or how they manifest in a given person depends on which field they're manifesting. But if we're talking about introverted intuition on its native field, it manifests as the thing that we always call intuition, like Sherlock Holmes' thing. There's a bunch of clues in front of the person, and one correct answer that needs to be intuited from those clues. Any meaningful understanding of introverted intuition will at least allow the word intuition to mean something like intuition. Okay? Because the only thing that's really intuition in the cognitive function stack is introverted intuition. And we know what introverted intuition is because we know what intuition is. It's that thing Sherlock Holmes uses to suddenly know the single answer out of these totally weird clues that wouldn't seem to necessarily suggest it, but not because he figured it out by thinking hard, but because, it just comes to him. That's knowing via intuition. It is the metaphysical form of knowing about identities and wholes and parts of things that aren't you. And I find the universal link, not the particular link. The example I always use is Rachel and Duck Hunt. When we saw the ducks flying by, and when we were sitting on the patio at the condo in Palm Desert, we watched the ducks fly by. There were two of them. It looked just like the two ducks on the game Duck Hunt. If she were SI, she would have said, this reminds me of the time I went duck hunting with my uncle and we saw these ducks that were flying around or whatever. That's an SI knowing. You're drawing a memory link, a link to one of your experience impressions. On the other hand, an NI link is one to a universal common symbol. So she sees that, she just says, duck hunt. That's NI. When I asked her one day, Rachel, can you define NI for me out of the blue? I just after that, I was asking somebody else, and I said, how about you, Rachel? What's your do you have a definition for introverted intuition? She said, internal knowing. And that's all she said. It's like, talk about NI. What does that mean? She gives me a meaningful answer that's decisive of an answer, sort of, but no unnecessary details because she's ignoring NE. To be good at NI means you have to ignore, but what if it's this or that or the other thing? You have to go with what it actually is. Now, it's important to remember that NI and NE are married to each other from birth, as SE and SI are married to each other, and that it doesn't work that way for the judging functions. So SE can safely ignore SI because it's so built in, assumes it will always be responsive to it. The first thing an SE DOM, SE anybody does, but imagine an SE DOM. The first SE they ever do in life is they probably scratch. That's an SE act prompted, initiated by SI. Oh, I have an SI feeling of itchiness. I'm going to scratch myself. And it attains an outcome that I'm seeking. Action gets the result. So ESTPs, ESFPs, they assume they never have to think about that thing. Since they were a little baby, their frame of reference has worked perfectly when they act upon SI indications. Now, note in the stack mechanics, it's 1-4. So, I mean, it's 1-5. It's ignored. SI is ignored when you're an SE DOM, but it's ignored and still very good at it. The 4 is NI. Now let's look at a TI DOM. For a TI DOM, the equivalent function, the equivalency of the relationship between SE and SI is between TI and FE, not between TI and TE. So FE is the proto soup from which TI emerges, or vice versa. It's always the extroverted emerging from the introverted. So FE is the emergent from the proto TI, not from the proto TE. What that means is a baby who's using TI has some awareness of equivalency, some awareness of fairness or consistency. And the reason they have that is because FE has seeded them. And so therefore they're seeding their FE into attending to others as though they had equivalent needs. Now, it takes a while for people to put those connections together between proto TI and FE and vice versa. You can see babies using proto FE all the time who have FE. In other words, they look at the mother and they smile and they're responsive in that sort of a fashion, right? They're displaying reciprocity. Reciprocity involves both TI and FE necessarily. On the other hand, if they're TE and FI, those emerge from each other in the process that I said before. It's like you can't TE without FI. And that's what I'm learning is my fucking big conundrum right now. I'm realizing just what a killer my FI polar is. I keep calling it an NI problem. It's not an NI problem. This is an FI problem I'm having. The problem is I don't know what I want to do more than what else I want to do. I want to do a lot of things. Well, I have a lot of projects I want to work on. I want to keep working on this document, make more cognitive function videos. I want to keep working on this song I'm working on that has that I now have I guess it's a bridge. It's like it goes into the chorus really well, but it doesn't come out of. It goes back into the verse really well, but it doesn't come out of the verse really well. So I think I still need a chorus, but I got another part in, and I made a lot more progress on this song I'm working on. So I definitely want to finish this. This is a high priority. I also feel like live streaming, so that's what I'm doing right now instead of working on one of these things. That's a high priority. When Rachel's having difficulties, obviously that's gonna take precedence over anything else because I want to make sure that shit's all good so I can relax and everything be kosher, Kosher is Horse Mumbler's mom's face. Because Horse Mumbler's indicated to me before he doesn't like it when I say your mom's face. So it's like that's a high priority, but here I am live streaming, and yeah, Rachel's singing in that too. We're actually probably going to end up redoing those. I'm not sure. We might redo those vocals. But thank you. I appreciate it. I'm really happy with it. The compositional aspects of it. Like I'm pleased with the way the melody and the chords and stuff go together in the first section. Thanks. I say the nay. People who aren't familiar with my music are pretty consistently, they tell me, huh, maybe it actually wasn't terrible. I understand though that if you've not been, if somebody says to me, I want to play for you my music now, I pretty much know going in that I'm not going to like it very much. Every once in a while, I'm impressed by something that somebody plays me, but even then, I think, hey, that's failing so much less than most things. So I get it. I have very firm and determined and confident taste, but I actually am an exception when I say that. It's like I'm the one, as far as I can tell, I'm the one random dude making random shit who's actually really is worth your attention, as far as musically I'm talking about. That's my opinion. I'm biased, I know, but I've been doing it for such a long time and working on it so hard and trying to get good at it for such a long time, and have so many of my own failures and varying levels of success within the medium to compare against, that I'm starting to get pretty confident about my judgment about certain things. You know, it's a long time coming. What's your passaggio? I don't know what a passaggio is, but right. Well, I'm well aware that 3 million people can make that claim. Millions of people. I'm sorry, not 3 millions of people. He said there's millions of people. For sure. Millions of people can and probably will make that claim. And my claim is that I used to be correctly grouped among them. That's probably the best way to put it. But with a lot of long, hard hours and work, I don't believe I any longer am. So I'm going to put this link here for whoever it was who said that thing about the presagio, which I assume means like the number one work or something like that. If you've not heard it before and you feel like you're interested and curious, this is my greatest hits playlist. If you're looking for a songwriting example it's one of my better songs that I've written, I would suggest What's the Big Problem or Destruction of the Whole Damn World. If you're looking for a produced track that's not, it wasn't born of songwriting but rather of track making in the production app, I'd recommend probably God of Rock, which is the first song on there. I like that one a lot. I need to upload Type Police. That's a good song too, and I don't have any version of it up on YouTube by itself. It's only in various Type Police videos. I don't have the original WAV file or anything anymore. I have none of that, none of the work I did on that song. So it's what I have on it's all there's ever going to be of it. So I got to just get sort of a not too bad stereo WAV file of it from YouTube, and then just be okay with that. That's one of the things that's frustrating for me is I know I've got like that computer, when that broke, I lost so much shit. It was like in progress and whatever. It's just all gone. And I was just like, whatever. Well, I mean, the thing is, down the road, I'm not like whatever though. I'm like, God, that hurts. So it goes. Well, to the extent that you are correct that my music resonates similarly to the experimental stuff from the 70s to early 90s, then those would be examples of my failure. You know, I'm not perfect. Some of my music is better than others, right? All my greatest hits, most of those things are not guilty of that objectively. But I have plenty of shit that is guilty of being too experimental, too avant-garde, or whatever. To the extent that my efforts now suffer from that, it's a shortcoming that I failed to beat that demon in this instance. I certainly don't want ever to be experimenting for the sake of experimenting. You know, I don't think of myself as experimental at all. I think of myself as striving to make the best track I can make on any given thing that I'm working on, and to make it as catchy and as poppy as possible without being too much so. You know, I definitely, that's my goal. I may or may not succeed at it. It's just such a penultimate. Are you sure you mean penultimate? Are you saying it's my second to last expression? Do you know something about my immediate future that I don't know? Oh my God, that's my second to last expression? Oh, I only have one more expression left? That's terrible news. INTJ Shadow. What the fuck does that mean? What the fuck does that mean? INTJ Shadow. Does it mean that when I stand in the sunlight, my shadow doesn't look like me, but way more dorky? Or you think you just mean the regular ultimate? Yeah, possibly. It's become the second to last word for greatest? Do people really use it like that now? That's weird. Why would they use it like that? You know what I always thought was funny was Corey's idea of going through Jack in the Box and ordering a penultimate cheeseburger. Because if you're not familiar with Jack in the Box has this product called the Ultimate Cheeseburger. And Corey one time made some sort of joke about penultimate cheeseburger. And I think at that point I took over the jokes about it, and imagined a scenario in which I drove through Jack in the Box, ordered a penultimate cheeseburger, and they took my order, just assuming I must have meant ultimate, and then get to the window and say, okay, well, look, I know we're near closing time, but there are 3 cars behind me. Are you sure that one of them does have a cheeseburger and the other 2 don't? And no other cars are going to come in? So I want to make sure I get the penultimate cheeseburger of the day. Let's see what they say. Yeah, I know. I did order an ultimate cheeseburger, but I made it clear I want the penultimate ultimate cheeseburger. And that's why I said I want the penultimate cheeseburger. Duh, obviously. Why would I have said that otherwise? People these days, they're crazy. They're wacky. They make no sense. I do know that, I say thee nay. I'll tell you a great example of that from my own life. When I was in my 20s, it was sometime during college. I remember it was a spring break, and I spent the whole spring break playing SimCity 2000. Like, I must have put in like 60 hours on it that week or something. And I named one of my sports stadiums in my city the Eric Strauss Memorial Coliseum, because I just thought memorial meant like celebrating this guy. because it's like it's always used in like this is the John Wayne Memorial Park. I'd never taken a sort of a census of the things that people were being memorialized and realized were all dead. So I didn't know it had anything to do with being dead. I just thought it meant, thinking of you, guy. and yes, you will hear it. I'm telling you, it's the equivalent story of me. And my dad came in and he's like, I was like, hey, Dad, look at my city. See, this is my stadium. It's Eric Strauss Memorial Coliseum. And he's like, but you're not dead. I said, what does that have to do with anything? Memorial means in memory of, because you're dead. And I went, really? Oh, yeah, that makes sense now. I see. Yeah, it does, huh? Okay. Yeah, look, okay. Avid bird watcher. Nobody is disputing that all 8 functions are in play. So, that's absolutely the case. And one uses them in specific kinds of ways because of their slot placement. So the thing is, I use the functions of an INTJ very unlike an INTJ ever would, because they're all unconscious. Whereas an INTJ, they're all conscious. More or less. I mean, it's a clumsy word to use, but you see what I'm saying. You're right that everybody has everybody's functions. But what makes me different from an INTJ is that whereas they have NI in the first slot, I have it in the 5th. The fact that I'm different because my functions are in a different place doesn't make me like them in some way, or sometimes one of them in some way, or displaying some INTJ qualities in some way. It makes me quite distinctly the opposite of that, not an INTJ. You must be a heavy TI user, say thee, to be so effy squirmy about a diction mistake. I asked a trivia question last night. Nobody got it, or nobody responded to it. And ask it again. I forgot about it after I asked it, so I never gave the answer. What is the only subject in the English language that uses the objective case? It's the only kind of subject in the English language that uses the objective case. I'll give you a hint. It's not a regular subject. So, for example, we don't say him go to the bathroom. We say he goes to the bathroom. That's the nominative case for the subject. The kind of subject that uses the objective case. What is it? Boo bee boo boo bobby boo bobby bee 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 Mama. It modulates. I got it wrong because it was too high pitch. But anyway, anybody get another answer? Nobody has an answer? Try. See, I'm saying, here's the thing. I want to know if anybody can even figure out the answer by Googling it. I'm curious. I could just try to Google it myself, of course. Probably make more sense. What happens if you Google that question? What's the only subject in English to use the objective case? Yeah, I bet it's hard. It would be hard to, even if you had full. It's a good question to ask because it doesn't matter if people cheat. I'm not cheating. It's like, good luck. You're not going to win an enema. No, Nicholas watching. You're going to win something way better than that. You're going to win a free copy of any image of your choosing from Google Images. Cool. If you win $500,000 answering this, you'll donate to my pants ad. That's great. That's a good decision. That's a wise use of your money. My pants ad is is worth us shutting down the entire world for, just as much as the virus is. What the is going on? Shadow, shadow, I'm living in my shadow. I'm feeling my shadow all the time. Shadow, shadow, being a shadow, shadow of time. Oh ha, it's a shadow. Oh ha, shadowy shadow. Oh ha, that's my shadow coming through right now. Oh ha, oh ha, that's my shadow. Oh ha, what's a shadow? Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. I like that shadow song. No, incorrect. Commands is incorrect. Thou is incorrect. Is it? No. What is it? I gotta put my glasses back on. Can't read this chat. I wish I could make this little chat window have bigger font. I don't think that's possible. Maybe it is. Maybe if I push Control Plus. Oh, it is. It does work on this. That's good. That's better. It's like that's fucking backside TE right there. How many times have I squinted at the chat, blah, 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 blah. And because there's not an obvious button that says increase the size of the font, push this plus here, I just deal with it, right? I don't try to solve the problem. I'm not attending to things via TE and FI. I'm not noticing the fact that I don't like that. I don't like that I have to squint and look over here. I don't like it at all. I'm not going to tell you the answer I just decided. Since nobody seems to know the answer, it's an exciting kind of quiz. It is a rather obscure grammar question. You have to really understand grammar well to. Question is, there is one kind of subject in the English language that uses the objective case. What is it? Just for reference, nominative case pronouns are I, you, he, she, it, we, they. Objective case pronouns are me, you, him, her, it, us, you, them. So, for example, we don't use the objective case as the subject of a sentence. I wouldn't say her sat down. I'd say she sat down. So that means what I'm saying is that in a normal subjective sentence, it always uses the nominative case pronoun and never the objective case pronoun. But there's one kind of subject in English that uses the objective case pronoun. What is that subject? The question makes more sense. No. So I guess I'm going to give you the following hint. The answer comes in the form of subject of. Okay. The answer comes in the form of subject of something, some other grammar thing. It's not a specific pronoun or anything like that. It's not whomever or whom or whatever. It's the answer is it's the subject of. And insert some grammar words there. A word or words. Whomsoever. I like whomsoever. That's great. It really should be the other way around though. Whomsoever, because that would be the natural way to order it. Whensoever whomever does is a combination of whensoever and whomever. Since the whensoever would come before the whomever in a naturally occurring sentence, the portmanteau, which is what that kind of word is called, should be whomever. When so whomever. When so whomever cake is brought, I'm eating. Right? That's how that would be used in a sentence. When so whomever cake is brought, I'm going up to that guy and I'm eating it. See, that's the correct use of when so whomever. Language is fun only for the sake of making up new words. Well, that's one of the ways in which it's fun. It's fun in lots of ways. It's also fun in the way that it can express FI, imitations of FI. Hey, I'm upset at you. Okay, I say thee nay, that is incorrect, but that's the correct form of the answer. And the answer will be like that. Okay? That is incorrect. Prepositions never have subjects. They only have objects. But good guess. Possessive pronouns never have subjects either. Possessive pronouns are mine, yours, his, hers, its, ours, yours, theirs. And possessive adjectives are my, your, his, her, its, ours, it's, our, your, their. And reflexive intensive is myself, yourself, himself, herself, itself, ourselves, yourselves, themselves. There are 5 classes of personal pronouns, by the way. Okay, well, that's not a reason to stop reading. That's a reason to stop drawing diagrams. So here's the thing. I'm going to share with you all a good way to remember the 5 classes of personal pronouns. I'm not being Nazi. I'm asking a trivia question. I'm just asking a question. Let me tell you the 5 classes of personal pronouns. In song form. I, you, he, she, it, we, you, they. These are subject pronouns that you and I and she can say. Me, you, him, her, it, us, you, them. These are object pronouns for you and he and her and him. My, your, his, her, it's, our, your, their. These possessive adjectives will tell you which is my chair. Mine, yours, his, hers, it's, ours, yours, theirs. These possessive pronouns are mine and yours and hers to share. Myself, yourself, himself, herself, itself, ourselves, yourself, themselves. These are intensive and reflexive. And that's the 5 classes of personal pronouns. Would you like me to sing it again? Oh, come on. You guys are slow learners. You haven't learned it yet? I sang it once. I'm surprised I remembered it. I made that song up to teach 5 classes of personal pronouns to middle schoolers, or just because I wanted to make it up. I don't know. I, you, he, she, it, we, you, they. These are subject pronouns that you and I and she can say. My, your, me, you, him, her, it, us, you, them. These. Let me try it again. I can't sing it with any other melody than this because how I always sung it. This is not a brand new song. I, you, he, she, it, we, you, they. These are subject pronouns that you and I and she say. My, me, you, him, her, it, us, you, them. These are object pronouns for me and her and us and them. My, your, his, her, it's, our, your, their. These possessive adjectives will tell you which is my chair. Mine, yours, his, hers, it's, ours, yours, theirs. These possessive pronouns are yours and mine and hers to share. Myself, yourself, himself, herself, itself, ourselves, themselves. These are intensive and reflexive. And that's the 5 classes of personal pronouns. Yeah, Hambone. I wouldn't call it possessive. I'd say it means that whatever goes in that blank there is something that can take a subject. Some kinds of phrases can take subjects. Prepositional phrases can't take subjects. Clauses must have subjects, whether they're dependent or independent. So yeah, and that's about it as far as subjects. There's subjects of clauses, which are subjects of sentences. There's subjects of various phrases. but not prepositional phrases. And that's it. No. Boy, people really don't know grammar very well. It's funny. I didn't know it either until I had to learn how to teach it from this guy who hired me to teach grammar. No, absolutely not. Learning grammar requires no memorization. It requires understanding, comprehension. It's the best thing to teach. I love teaching it. My NTP can. If you have, okay, let me, for those of you who don't have access to it currently because of whatever reason, let me find a link to the grammar book, okay? And I'll put it here. It's free, anybody can get it. It's in some sense, it's the best book I've ever written. In some sense, it's the best thing I've ever done because, well, not because, but it's also almost none of it is my idea in terms of the teaching mechanisms of it. It's all his stuff. This is me making a book of his approach to teaching grammar. I make some tweaks to it or whatever, but it's fundamentally his engine that I'm doing there. I put Hulu for. That's not what I'm looking for. Eric Strauss, Orderly World of Grammar. There it is. I found it. Oh my gosh, you guys. I am so excited to share with you tonight a wonderful woman who's done a wonderful, amazing work amongst sea turtles of Pierre. Here you go. Here's a grammar book. So, what can be used as a subject or an object? I want to see what your answer was, Dustin. Second person plural, like they or you? You mean you or you? Second person plural is you or y'all. English doesn't have a different plural form of you, except y'all. Anyway, those can be used as either subjects or objects, but that's not the question. When they're used as subjects, they're nominative case pronouns. So, in other words, the nominative pronouns are I, you, he, she, it, we, you, they. And the objective case pronouns are me, you, him, her, it, us, you, them. So whether or not it's objective or subjective can only be determined by whether it's working as an object or a subject. You can't determine that. You can't say that the word you inherently has any case at all, but it because it occurs identically in both things, right? But that's not the answer. That's not the example of a subject that uses the objective case. That's an example of the nominative case being identical to the objective case. Yeah, but it's a good answer. It is not the case, however, that just because the nominative case is identical to the objective case, that therefore it's using the objective case. No. This is the thing. It's not just a classification of structure. Grammar grows in accordance with the need to communicate and draw distinctions. So, in other words, it always does the same thing, no matter what the form of it is. Underlying engine of it is the same because it's built of fundamentally the following things: statement connectives, first and foremost, and a strict box you can't get out of that is subject object agent related. Okay, everything language does has to always link to an agent, I, a subject, that guy over there doing something, or an object, the thing I'm kicking, be it a guy or a rock. All verbs link to subjects. That's why to be a statement at all means a requirement of a subject and a verb, be they implied or otherwise. Well, his butt hurts? That's not a complete. No, that is a complete sentence. Yeah, that's a possessive adjective. His. It's describing the noun butt, which is working as a subject. But butt is not a pronoun, so it doesn't have any case. You can't even conceive of a verb without a subject doing the verb. It doesn't make any sense. The concept of verb, the idea of there being a thing that verb represents, necessitates there be a subject, or else you can have something in passive voice, and all that does is it renders the receipt of experience into the subjective aspect of the communication. So if I say the rock was smashed, makes the rock the subject of the sentence. Now the rock's not doing the action, it's having the action done to it, but it's still the subject of the sentence because it's the rock's perspective, or presumably the third party's perspective, imagining the rock, that is the center of the communication there. When I say the rock was being smashed, I'm describing the rock's experience, not the experience of the smasher. So this is why we can't understand cognitive functions or anything else we're trying to understand with language before we start making distinctions about subjects, objects, and agents. Because that also starts to clarify information about fields. So all subjects can operate on both external fields and both internal fields. But when they're operating on their internal fields, they're not subjects anymore. In other words, they're agents. They're operating in privacy or in darkness, hiding this inside their head. I can think things I don't say out loud. I have the capacity to do deliberation that I don't choose to voice because it's incomplete or it turned out to be a dead end or whatever. I don't have to say everything I think, right? So there needs to be an accounting for the fact that I have access to my own internal fields, but not somebody else's. I have access to both external fields that are the same as access that everybody else has. Whereas the access I have to my internal fields is different than other people have access to my internal fields. So that's why we have to make the distinction between agency and subject. I really hope she is asleep. That'd be fantastic. I'm not going to go in to check because it'll wake her up if she is asleep. So if she is asleep, I'm just going to let her sleep. I will, at some point later on, I will very quietly tiptoe in through the quiet door and see if I can check on her without waking her up. She's such a light sleeper, it's crazy. So Kevin Nanny Cam. It's funny. So the subjective and objective case can be the same object, but within the sentence structure becomes a subject. Okay, well, case is only something for pronouns. Like, we have different cases for pronouns because if I say, we don't really need to, frankly, because word order matters in English. That's why it's the most correct diagnosis for Rachel's mental health issue is a sleep disorder. She both has a lot of trouble sleeping and failure to sleep causes her significant problems. Yeah, so what I'm saying is because every sentence ends up turning into subject, verb, possibly object, regardless of whether it's passive or active voice. You know, I was eating the bear is different than I was eaten by the bear. I don't have to include the by the bear part of the sentence for it to be a complete sentence that's grammatically correct. So, I was eaten by the bear. If I just say I was eaten, I'm still the subject of the sentence, even though there's nobody who's doing anything is included in the sentence. Now, if I say I was eaten by the bear, I'm still the subject of the sentence because bear, who's doing the action, is the object of a preposition, by the bear. So, in other words, passive voice doesn't get us out of the fundamental reality that English prime, as it's called, and this is something you can Google easily and find out a lot about, and there's not much to know about it, is the idea that we should only use subject, verb, object constructions, that we should never use any linking verbs because linking verbs are metaphors, and that's interfering with our ability to communicate. Now, granted, most people who advocate for English prime are saying specifically this is how scientific papers should be written, and not saying that people should walk around just talking in English prime. But it's true that linking verbs allow a lot of metaphor to happen in language, and that metaphor, that ease of metaphor that language allows, causes a lot of reification fallacy. In other words, treating non-agents as though they were agents, or making category errors about objects of analysis, mistaking kinds of symbols for other kinds of symbols and stuff like that. No, the answer is not it. For the same reason, it's not you. Yes, it is the same in the nominative and objective case. Therefore, when it is working as a subject, it is used in the nominative case. To say it's the, it's like, it's identical in the nominative and objective case, but it doesn't mean that when it's working as a subject, it's using the objective case. Can somebody competent in chat try writing like in Finnegan's Wake? I've never read it. I don't know what the writing's like, but that's an interesting challenge. So I guess you guys have given up on the subject part. Subject question was the only kind of subject in English that uses the objective case. You want me to just tell you? Or do you want me to just leave the question, let you sleep on it, decide if you're going to try to answer it later? Okay, I will tell you. It is it's the subject of the infinitive. A subject of the infinitive uses the objective case. What's an example of a subject of the infinitive? It's like this. I watched him crash his car. In that sentence, him crash his car is an infinitive phrase working as the direct object. Him crash his car is the infinitive phrase working as the direct object. Him is the subject of the infinitive. To, implied to in parentheses, and then crash is the infinitive. To crash is the normal infinitive form. This one says him crash. There's an implied to. Him crash his car. Car is the object of the infinitive phrase. So the sentence, I watched him crash his car, is a sentence that has a subject, verb, and direct object. And that's it. Except the direct object happens to be an infinitive phrase called him crash his car. In that infinitive phrase, him is the subject of the infinitive, crash is the infinitive, to crash is the infinitive, car is the object of the infinitive, and his is an adjective describing the noun car. So that's a subject of the infinitive. Now, normally in any subject, if I were to say, him walk his dog, that would be crazy. But if I say, I watch him walk his dog, that makes sense. Why? Because then it's the subject of the infinitive, not the sentence. Now you know. And now you can play that game at a cocktail party or something. And say, hey, I've got a grammar trivia question for you. Who thinks they know grammar? It's a satisfying answer, right? You're satisfied. It's not a gimmick. It's not a trick. There is a kind of subject in infinitive. There is a kind of subject in English that uses the objective case, and I can give you a perfectly good example of it, and you go, oh, yeah, right? Isn't that satisfying? That's some satisfying stuff right there. So, hey, all I can say is that right there, that response you just said, that's the awesome NI thing. That's the awesome NI pop thing to say right there. It's perfect thing to say. It's what some people derisively might term low-hanging fruit, but because it's clever enough that it made me laugh for sure, I would say kudos to you, sir. No, I say thee nay. No, it's not that, okay? It's the Center for Subjects of the Infinitive. We're tired of everybody hating on the objective case at the subject parties. Subjects of the infinitives are subjects too. You do not need to discriminate against them just because they arrive dressed in the squalid gear of the objective case. Can I take a break now? I want to take a little break, smoke a cigarette. I don't really like smoking right here, even though I'm by the door. I'm not really standing outside the door. I think I want to take a break for a second. Okay. Can you please, while I'm gone, I'm going to move the bong so I don't knock it on the floor. Here's another grammar trivia question for you to think about while I was smoking a cigarette. In the sentence, Joe painted his walls red, what part of speech is red? Yes, it's an adjective, but it's specifically called something, that part of speech that in that sentence, what that is. What is that called? Joe painted the room red is the sentence. Okay, hey. Hey there. Hey. Come on. Stop that. Stop fondling my produce. I'm tired of it. Tired of you coming in here every day, fondle the produce. That's why I put up this sign. Please don't fondle the produce. That'll put a stop to it. Yeah, don't fondle the produce. Attributive? No. Nobody knows the answer? I'll just tell you guys. Nope. So wrong. Oh my God, you're so wrong about that. Where does that thing save to? I'm not sure. Let's look at this PC capture, it's called. I call it capture. .png. I'm looking for a capture. .png. A capture for you and me for the capture on your GEG on a capture. Yeah, see. It's not a modifier now. I mean, it is a modifier, but it's not. It's a specific. It's got a specific name that when it's functioning in that part of speech. Because you got to think about when you're dealing with grammar, you got to think about the sentence. Joe paints the room red. What's the verb? Paints is the verb. Who paints? Joe paints. Therefore, Joe's the subject. Joe paints what? Joe paints room. Therefore, room is the direct object. The is an article or an adjective describing the noun room. Now, what's the thing after room? Pink. Now, note, it's working very differently than it would normally work. Joe painted the pink room means the room's pink and he's painting it a different color. Joe painted the room pink means the room's not pink and he's painting it pink. And so when you have that thing come after it like that, after the direct object, telling us more about what's been done to the direct object, that part of speech has a specific name. Oh yeah, pink, red, whatever. And the specific name of that part of speech is the object complement. So there are two kinds of object complements. They come in nouns as well. So I can say, I named my cat Capillo. I named my cat Capillo. Capillo is a noun, but it's an object complement. It's telling us more about what's been done to the direct object. And it's a fairly unusual construction. But you can tell the difference. Like you can have a sentence that says, the magician turned me yellow. In that case, me's an indirect object and yellow. I'm sorry, in that case, me's a direct object and yellow is an object complement. If you say, Bob made me a hamburger, in that case, me's an indirect object and hamburger is the direct object. It's what Joe made. That's why you got to ask those questions like subject, verbs, what? Blah. Therefore, blah is the direct object. If you say magician turned what? You're not going to say yellow. The sentence magician turned me yellow obviously does not mean the magician turned yellow. It means I turned yellow. So when you say what was turned by the magician, the answer is me. On the other hand, in a sentence, Bob made me a hamburger. Bob made what? He didn't make me, he made a hamburger. Therefore, hamburger is a direct object. That's why those questions should be, like, if you're going to approach anything in grammar, you should approach it the way I'm saying, because it's a logical process you're doing. You can logically conclude things based on how certain questions are answered. And there's a progression, it's a TE sort of approach that you can always follow to be sure you're not being misled by something in the sentence. That's true, Horseman. It could be. You're right. I stand corrected. It could be a pink room getting another coat of pink paint. So I want to play this thing called the guitar. And I would like to play this other thing called this song that I found incidentally that I just came across and was happy to, the chords and lyrics for in an old video that I didn't think I had the chords for it, but I do now. So I'm going to be able to play it without making mistakes. Let me see where this thing saves to. Tune. Yeah, okay, fine. Thank you. I don't actually want to use your app. I just wanted to say see where you saved to. Oh shit. You guys are gonna play that game? Good luck. We're in trouble now. That's funny. I see what I need to do. I need to open this in a different application. Open with GIMP. Yeah, you have to go up to 10 in order, avid birdwatcher, or else you fail. The failure of your loss is complete. Nobody will ever respect you again. I'm just kidding. People will still respect you even though you lose this game. Don't worry about it. It's going to be just fine. New. Oh, here comes Rachel. She's not sleeping. Hi, baby. You're not sleeping.
I think I have like something going on from my like as a result of my medication.
What, you mean you're experiencing some sort of allergic reaction?
Like I think my thyroid isn't. Like, I think I have a goiter.
A goiter?
Yeah.
So what should we do?
I don't know. I gotta research it and stuff, but.
Okay, what makes you think that? I don't feel anything.
Yeah, but look, feel yours.
I mean, it feels a little different, but I don't feel anything distinctly problematic. What do you?
I think it's from lithium.
Okay, why don't you sort of wean off the lithium part of it? That's not. That doesn't help you sleep anyway.
No, it does.
It does?
It does a little bit, yeah, but I don't need to be on it.
Okay, well, wean off of it then. Do you think you need to go to the doctor?
I don't know.
Are you? Besides, hey, listen. This is what I'm asking.
I might.
But listen to me. Are you concerned because of what you're feeling inside, or what you're feeling when you do this?
I've been noticing my. I'm like, why can't I breathe like the sea? Like I've been feeling weird, but I didn't know what it was at all.
Okay, well, look.
Just letting you know.
All right, well, we'll make an appointment for the doctor, some doctor tomorrow, okay? And we'll get this shit dealt with. Like a lot of stuff happened today. We're already planning on I'm talking to the psychiatrist tomorrow and a lot of things. So remember, the solution's already in place. We're gonna address all these concerns of yours starting tomorrow, right, bright and early. If you feel as though you're experiencing substantial physical distress, let me know, and we can take more dramatic action. If you feel as though you're not feeling well, but you're not totally ill, then continue to try to sleep. Did you drink the vodka thing? No. Have that. That won't hurt. Okay. You have been sleeping? That's good. Okay, so let me do this. Just 1 second. Sorry for the delay here. I'm sure this is very, very dull. I'm almost done with what I'm doing. And boy, once I am done, you're going to be like, thank God we waited for that. Okay. Scale? Where's scale? Here. Mm-hmm. Here we go. Okay, there. It's 1. And two new layer and scale layer. 600. All right. Now, save as noise data stream lyrics. Not save as, export as. Yes. Export, I said. Duh. You're so dumb. Okay. Now I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go over here. Push a new one of these. Like, yeah. I'm going to put that thing. I'm going to put that thing right into your ass. I'm going to put that thing right into your butt. I'm going to put that thing right into your foot. I'm going to put that thing right into your gut. I'm going to put that thing right into your what? I'm going to put that thing right into your butt. And you better not forget about it again. I better not forget about it again. Okay. Fine. I won't forget about it. I won't put it there. Let's see what I can find. Desktop. Just put it on the desktop, Eric. You shouldn't do that, Eric. It's already so crowded on the desktop. Oh, S-I schmess-I. You know what I say about that. I say S-I schmess-I. Noise. Is that what it's called? What did I call it? Lyrics. There it is. Good. Now. Sexy. That's a sexy drag and drop. Not that. Fuck you. No. It's not right. This one. Good. Good. Fine. Wonderful. Good news. Good news, everybody. Have you heard the good news? Christ is risen. Christ is Lord. I'm here to tell you all about it. Christ appointed me the guy in charge of doing that. So anyway, if you haven't heard, first of all, number one thing to remember, Christ is risen. Number two, Christ is Lord. Oh. So would you say he's a risen Lord? You could call him Lord risen, maybe. Either way. Okay, can you play a song now? Sure. Too much noise in the data stream. Loud enough to disrupt everybody's dreams. Frustrations mean mistakes are made until it seems that everybody's just throwing shade. I won't be just another casualty of other people's well-intentioned rules. I used to think that some tomorrow there'd be time for yesterday. It's not the sort of thing that one can borrow. No one willing still to lend a day. Your uncertainty's implicit, just like an unexpected visit from a bunch of men all dressed in blue suits. I won't be just another casualty of other people's well-intentioned rules. I used to think that some tomorrow there'd be time for yesterday. Well, you could practice it some, but it's better with the lyrics and stuff than without them for sure. Okay, let me look at this real quick. With them, yeah. Yes, I will link to the grammar. To be desirous of grammar is no shame in that. No. Perhaps man's noblest lust is the lust for grammar. Here's another trivia question. What is mankind's most noble lust? The lust for grammar? Correct. I'm lustful for grammar. I think that's fair to say. I'm quite lustful for it. You know what? Another thing that you can learn in that book, a good trivia question. The thing nobody knows about grammatically are nominative absolutes. Like when you put arms pumping, the runners cross the finish line. Arms pumping is a nominative absolute. Anyway, you could read about it in the book if you like. What am I doing? That's right. I'm playing songs on the guitar. Isn't that adorable? That is so cute. I love that. It's wonderful. Oh, what a wonderful time. Happy days and happy ways. Oh, what a wonderful time. I'm having wonderful days. Oh, what's that? It's adorable. If you want to be very happy, you've got to like things that are adorable. If you want to be very happy, you must like some things that are very, very darling. If you want to be happy, you must like some things that are very rustic and shabby chic. If you like to be very happy, you've got to like things that are adorably unique. Adorability is the engine of truth. I like things that are darling. How about you, Ruth? If you say you don't, then I'll lose respect for you. That's like saying that you have nothing on display at the Many Times Museum of Miniatures. That's equally shameful. Evidence on SI metrics, but it doesn't mean it's nothing. Don't mean it's nothing. You don't mean it's nothing. I don't think it's nothing, but the problem is, Vandy, what I'm saying is we already have a plan to talk to her, to call, and I've already called them today to set up the fact that it's urgent. I need to talk to the psychiatrist tomorrow. We'll do so as soon as the mental health place opens. At that point, after talking to the psychiatrist, I will immediately make it, depending on what happens there, I'll make an appointment for, I'll definitely, they'll make an appointment for a regular doctor for her tomorrow, or try to get her in quickly and or talk to a nurse practitioner or something, you know. I think I'm going to call my healthcare partners down there because they're used to me being a cash patient. She'll be a cash patient here too. Or she got this New York insurance that's not good out of state. So, I am worried. It's just that I already know that I'm not worried enough to take her to the emergency room. I'm willing to do so if it turns out that she comes back at her and says, I feel really weird. And she displays something that looks like physical distress, then I'll take her. No problem. But right now, I think she's tripping herself out a little bit. She is experiencing some mental health dysfunction. That doesn't mean that she's experiencing about this, but the last few days have been a rocky few days for us, which is why I'm definitely pursuing healthcare stuff immediately tomorrow. But this thing will be included on that process for sure. It's that's why I'm not really doing anything, because it's already planned and all that stuff. I'm not undertaking the seriousness of it. You know what I'm saying, dog? You know what I'm saying, dog? Do you know what I'm saying, dog? Do you feel me, Holmes? Do you know what I'm saying, dog? Do you feel me, Holmes? Can I get a what? Talk to the hand. Can I get a butt? Or a brand new land? I don't know. I would say Rick as well. I'm going with Rick too. It seems like the NI answer, and I can't think of anybody better. I think the greatest, like, there's a couple of people in mind of competition for the greatest real ENTP of all time. But the one I feel most like, a couple of them I feel jealous of. Like, if I were going to be hugely successful in some fashion, I'd be hugely successful like ENTP X and Y. And those two ENTPs are Mark Twain and Steve Allen. Steve Allen is basically me, but legitimate. You know, I'm me, which means I'm illegitimate. It's like, it's hard to be legitimate when you keep middle fingering legitimacy. The sort of interface legitimacy metrics, FE and TE, and only care about your own legitimacy metrics. I'm sorry that I only care about my own legitimacy metrics. How foolhardy of me. Okay, what was I going to play? No, I was going to play an actual song. What was it? Oh, that's right. I was going to play this. Hi, someone elsewhere. Gerald has a thought. Gerald has a lot. Gerald has a plot to get the margarine tater tots. He's got a good idea for a name-changing business, thinking now about what you call Christmas. When they hire his firm to change that name, Gerald always thought that's enough to return to the work that rough. He'd get back to it eventually, but his visions piled up and his plans would interrupt all the work that started off so hopefully. And now his mind is back on his business, thinking of changing backlist to listless. So how was they bullshit down his name? Yeah, he is. And the world knows he ever more right now. He can't provide explanation regarding the why, the how. He'll see you, I know you, from inside your heart. Exciting, delighting, Gerald plays his part. But Gerald's still new, too much to do. He brought the time and the underview. Too much to rebut. Where now and what? Too much time spent picking this cue with you. Gerald has a thought. Gerald has a lot. Gerald has a plot to get the margarine tater tots. He's got a good idea for an ancient business, thinking now about what he'll call Christmas when they hire his firm to change that name. Gerald has a thought. Oops, did I leave the echo on? My bad. I'm always putting effects on things like that. Oh, did I leave the distortion on? My bad. Okay, what am I playing next? Another good song. How fun. Let's do one. Let's do Destruction of the Whole Damn World. We need to see. We need to know. We need to pen happenings down by a means to judge a logical life, keep the passively unlogic from which we'll rarely budge. People everywhere gather up in a meeting, down and down, how to listen to priorities, fast falling, backstabbing into peace, shooting out of your misery, follow necessarily from the savage ways. Insulting, causing and desiree. We're stuck in such petty larceny. All partition the rectories and call it destruction of the whole damn world. Julie shares now her limits. Julie will too. Jerry shares for 4 minutes. Just can't share things like they do. Julie always thought that she should have bought to when she had the chance to buy. Julie soon forgot about tuna, not although she ever recall that. People everywhere gather up in the means outraged at how they miss a sign. How to listen to priorities, these foreign backstabbing entities. To win, I make a misery, follow necessarily from the savage ways. Insulting, causes and misery. We're stuck in such petty larceny. We all partition the rectories and call destruction of the whole damn world. Boom! Or should I say, kaboom? I should, and I retroactively do. You can talk to me with your voice and your words. What you want to say, my bird? Would you like to play with turds? Then I don't want to play with you. If you want to play with turds, I don't want to play. Sorry, I'm not into turd play. Birds is fun. I'll talk about birds. I won't talk about turds for longer than 15 minutes. I'll talk about birds for up to 25. Yeah, I'll talk about turds for at least 5 minutes, maybe 10 if it's past dinner. But I won't play any extra tennis anyway. See, I have one of my happiest realities as a human being is that even if you weren't here, and don't get me wrong, it's important to me that you are. Even if you weren't here, I could still sit here and make myself laugh. That makes me happy to know that there's a reality. I like humorous things. No problem, Horse Mumbler. You enjoy the richness of your of indulging your lust for grammar. A lust for grammar is a noble lust. While a lust for grammar, is a noble lust. Your lust for grammar is something you must not trust. While your lust for grammar is a noble lust, your lust for grammar you must not trust. Okay, I want you to just remember that. While your lust for grammar is a while your lust for grammar is a noble lust. While your lust for grammar is a noble lust. You must not. While your lust for grammar is a noble lust. While your lust for grammar is a noble lust. Your lust for grammar you must not trust. Yes, your lust for grammar is a noble trust. But your lust for grammar you must lust for grammar. You must not trust. Okay. Your lust for grammar is a no. Your lust for grammar is a noble lust. While your lust for grammar is a noble lust. Your lust. While your lust for grammar is a noble lust. Your lust for grammar you must not trust. While your lust for grammar is a noble lust. Your lust for grammar you must not trust. While your lust for grammar is a noble lust. Your lust for grammar something. While your lust for grammar is a noble lust. Your lust for grammar you must. Your lust for grammar you must not trust, while the lust for grammar is a noble lust. The lust for grammar you must not trust, while the lust for grammar is a noble lust. The lust for grammar you must not trust. It's a very good song. Very good song right there. I want you guys to remember this is true. It's also a good words to live by. Your lust for grammar is a noble lust, but your lust for grammar you must not trust. Your lust for grammar is a noble lust, but your lust for grammar you must not trust. If you trust your grammar lust, if you trust your grammar lust, then you will get, and you will earn widespread. You will earn widespread disgust. Spread disgust. Yeah, like that. This song is great. I like this song. It'd never be a recorded song, but I like it anyway. Because if you I'm trying to get it down here because everybody's life depends on it. Your grammar lust is a noble lust, but your grandma lust you. But grandma lust you must not trust. Your grammar lust is a noble lust, but grandma lust you must not trust. If you indulge in grandma lust, then you'll incur widespread disgust, and your behavior gets discussed as sorted. There you go. There's complete now. Okay, let's see if I can get it down all at once. One taker. Your grammar lust is a noble lust, but your grandma lust you. But grandma lust you must. Grandma lust you must not trust. Grandma lust you must not trust. Yes. Your grammar lust is a noble lust, but your grandma lust you must not trust. For if in grandma you do bust, you'll incur widespread. You'll incur you'll become subject to widespread disgust. That's what I'm supposed to say. You're subject to widespread disgust. Subject to widespread disgust, and your behavior gets discussed as sorted. See, okay. It's very close to being done. I'm sorry for the delay here. I know you're desperate to hear it all put together beautifully. And you'll incur widespread disgust, and find yourself therefore disgust as sorted. Find yourself therefore disgust as sorted. You'll incur widespread disgust, and find yourself thereafter. And find thereafter your disgust is sorted. And find thereafter your disgust is sorted. Grammar lust is a noble lust, but grammar lust is a noble lust. Grandma lust you must not trust. For if in grandma you do bust, your actions thereafter discussed as sorted. Your grammar lust is a noble lust, but your grandma lust you must not trust. For if in grandma you do bust, your actions will then be discussed by everybody you do trust as sorted. Yes, because Bacon, I want to tell you something very important. Grammar lust is a noble lust, but your grandma lust must. Your grammar lust is a noble lust, but your grandma lust you must not trust. For if in grandma you do bust, your actions will evoke disgust and be widely discussed by folks as sorted. Your grammar lust is a noble lust, but your grandma lust you must not trust. For if in grandma you do bust, then you'll evoke widespread disgust and be discussed thereafter just as sorted. Your grammar lust is a noble lust, but your grandma lust you must not trust. For if in grandma you do bust, then you'll evoke widespread disgust and be discussed thereafter just as sorted. Yes, your grammar lust is a noble lust, but your grandma lust you should not trust. For if in grandma you do bust, then thereafter you'll be discussed by everybody else. Just thereafter you'll be discussed by everybody, discussed by all the others, just as sorted. I don't want all that fuss. Okay. It'll be discussed with lots of fuss and thus incur the I'll come inside. Come in. Yeah, we'll deal with it right now. I'll end the stream right now. Thanks, folks. Talk to you later.